Ada for not dropping out of a house party despite it making my ex's new fiancé uncomfortable. My ex, 27M, and I, 26F, split 2 years ago. We met through my best friend, who worked in the same theater as him then, and the reason we broke up was because he didn't think we were working anymore. It was pretty amicable, I didn't put up a fight or anything. But I strongly believe there was no reason for us to be friends anymore. That always causes problems, but I'm still friendly with his friends, and I make small chat if I run into his parents. We live a pretty close-knit environment. Don't ask me how, we live in a city, but most of my friends and his come from either the same uni or have a common hobby, or we roam around the same circles, and we definitely see each other once or twice every couple of months. My ex has a fiancée now, and I am happy for them. I have never met her. Until now I thought this didn't matter or anything. We are all adults, or so I think. One of his closest friends, Peter, just bought a house. I am friends with his girlfriend and we are both invited to the housewarming. I didn't think any of it. However, my ex texted me yesterday, after like a year, albeit very politely, that maybe I could skip the housewarming, as he was bringing his fiancée, and she will feel uncomfortable. I was pretty weirded out by his wording, so I called him. He said, his fiancée feels uncomfortable that I would be anywhere close to him, and the fact that they both feel like I sometimes intrude into their social gatherings, just to prove I'm better than her to his friends. I got pretty mad hearing him say these things, and I asked him in what way we are not friends, and I stopped hanging out with his friends the moment we broke up to not make things difficult for him. There were a lot of people in his circle I became close to, but I stepped away, just so that things weren't awkward for any future partner. And how was it my fault? My ex explained 2 of his friends didn't like or respect his GF and thought her an airhead, and so did his parents. Our circles are, I admit, full of literature and theater people, and I admit some of them can be pretentious. Again, I told him that was him being a spineless BF and not my problem. I told my ex strongly that both Peter and his GF are my friends and I would be going to their housewarming, and his relationship issues are not my problem. I have blocked him now, and his fiancée sent a long text on how she was sorry, but now I was apparently being vindictive, and how did it matter if I didn't go to a housewarming? She asked me to not make any drama and please respect her. I didn't reply and blocked her. My friends are pissed at my ex and I haven't told my friend or Peter any of it yet. I think maybe I could have handled it any other way. Ada comments. I gives context on her relationship to Peter and his girlfriend. Peter's GF and I have been friends for a long time. We were even roommates for 8 months technically. I'm a closer friend to Peter than my ex is, even though they are college friends, because of his fiancée's antics, and Pete and another one of his closest friends are drifting away from my ex, because he insists on bringing her everywhere, and they don't like her. Out of all my ex's friends, it's only Pete I'm close to, mainly because of his GF plus, his GF and Pete met through me, so I am a very close part of their friend group. Which is why I was pissed at my ex, because I can understand if he was telling me to skip his best friend's party, telling me to skip one of my closest friends' housewarming for his fiancée who people don't like there, sounded so stupid. Comments 1. NTA, but you should tell Peter and his girlfriend your ex and his fiancée are dicks. It is not your job to manage their emotions or insecurities. If she's uncomfortable, then she should stay home. Comments 2. I agree, Peter should be told before the ex has a chance to spin this and make OP the bad guy. Reply. Peter is one of those people who doesn't like her. Our circle is mainly filled with people who mix within a certain type of bookish thinking. Plus, Peter and another of my ex's friends think she is anti-intellectual. Most of my ex's friends are like that, theater people or really pretentious assholes. Peter doesn't like her more because he thinks my ex was stupid to break up with me and couldn't handle it if I was doing better than him. Their friendship is already on thin ice and I don't want to be the reason it breaks. Comment 3. I was apparently being vindictive, and how did it matter if I didn't go to a housewarming? Call me a cynic, but the fiancé is being vindictive, and how does it matter if she or your dickhead ex don't go to a housewarming? Comments 4. Unblock her and text her back. Your insecurities are not my problem to fix. If the housewarming isn't that important, then you and ex are welcome to sit this one out. I will be celebrating my friend's next step into the future with them. Then block her. Comments 4. NTA, you've handled everything fine. This is their issue, not yours. Anytime you are at the same location as them, obviously avoid them at all costs. And I would really minimize speaking about them at all. The more you can firmly say, I don't talk or think about you, the better. Oh, and the irony, everything she said to you goes right back at her. You've done nothing in this scenario. It's your ex's request that's creating the drama. Update. Thank you for all the lovely suggestions in my previous post, which is why I am doing an update. I did go to the party. Honestly, after reading that, yes, my ex had in fact lost his mind. I decided not to bother Peter or his GF, my friend, and just go and mind my business. It's not like my ex and his fiancée would come and scream the house down on seeing me again. I guess I didn't mention in my last post, and the reason I was more mad at my ex was because I have a very serious boyfriend. The idea that my ex's fiancé would think I'd go anywhere to spite my ex despite having a boyfriend was really insulting. We went to the housewarming, and I ignored them. I don't care, we are all adults, and I am not going to fuel drama. And my ex and his fiancé, her especially, made a fool of themselves, and at some point, even I felt bad because I saw how desperate she was for my ex's friends to respect her or take any one of her sentences seriously. Whoever she tried to talk to ignored her or straight up walked away again. Peter and my ex's friends are a different group, and I'm not friends with them, but the way my ex let his friends treat his fiancée made my blood boil. I mostly hung out with my friends, Peter's GF's friend group, and I didn't speak or look at my ex once. One time he said hi, and my boyfriend said hello back, and we didn't see him near us for the rest of the night. His fiancée just asked me if my dress wasn't a bit too modest, and Peter told her. Everyone there followed the dress code. Casual, elegant, don't ask me, I didn't make the rules, but she didn't. My boyfriend already loathes my ex, so we did not mingle near them again. Overall, I had a good time. We even got to leave early and have some more time to ourselves, watched a movie, and had a good time at home. However, what pissed me off was how much of a shitty fiancé he was, and how much his fiancée was trying to fit in, and failing, and he wouldn't even help her. My boyfriend isn't just a bookish person, and he doesn't fit in with some pretentious people either, and he is very blunt, so some people don't like him. Plus, he loves video games and comics, and has hobbies, trekking, diving, which scare me, but we compromise and learn to adjust to each other's interests. Plus, if someone treats my BF even a little like how they treat my ex's fiancé, I'd cut them off, no questions asked, and I am already LC with a few friends who judged and made comments about him in the past. I really hope she leaves him, if she has any dignity, or he gets his shit together. All in all, not my problem. Comments. Something about the first story and the modest dress comment has me thinking the new fiancé was an affair partner and she's always been insecure about OP. She's been competing with you longer than you realize probably. Comments 2. I agree with you, it seems like that girl was the AP of OP's ex-fiancé. That would definitely explain the competition, insecurity, why his friends treat her so badly, and why his parents don't like her. It would also explain why he doesn't respect or try to protect her. Why would he take someone with no morals seriously? I bet OP's ex-fiancé's friends and parents like OP more, and the girls in the group are probably making that girl's life hard out of fear that she'll go after their boyfriends, just like she did with OP's ex. Keep your distance from them, they don't deserve even a minute of your time. Comments 3. You handled this perfectly. Part of me felt like she didn't want you there because she didn't want the reality check, because she has now had the opportunity to see how you interact with people, how your boyfriend interacts with you, and how people interact with her boyfriend, and the paradox between your situation and her situation. It's a shame you blocked them, because I imagine if they were messages in backlash to your success versus hers, they would have been glorious to read. But importantly, you don't care. In fact, you have empathy for her. That's great, shows how beautifully you've grown over 2 years. Comments 4. Wow, you are a genuinely nice person. After she took a petty dig at you, you are more mad at how your ex's friends treat her than your ex was. I think that says a lot about your character, and what a strong and confident person you are. Bravo. Comments 5. NTA for attending, but I think all of your friends sound like pretentious AHs. A dress code for a housewarming, and being rude and ignoring someone's partner because they're not smart enough or interesting enough. Comment 6. Having an excuse to dress up is fun, plus they're theater kids, so it just amplifies that. I doubt anyone would have commented on her outfit if she hadn't tried to throw shade at OP. She made herself look bad in response to a downvoted comment that claimed she hadn't gotten over her ex. Wow. Because having empathy, if a person, no matter how they act, is being treated poorly, means that I have not moved on. Caring about how others are being treated doesn't always come with ulterior motives, and my being mad at my ex for being a shit human being towards his fiancée has nothing to do with my non-existent feelings for him, but everything to do with being uncomfortable with another woman being insulted in front of you. Stories number 2. Aita for cutting off my parents because they plan on leaving almost everything to my disabled brother. My 24F brother, 32M, is a failure to launch. He's never been very smart. He did badly in school, and never went to college. He tried 2 different trade schools, welding and mechanic, but he basically flunked out of both. He works at a gas station now. My brother and I are our parents' only children. They always treated us relatively equal, until adulthood. They always insisted we earn our own way. They refused to pay for college or anything. I joined the military at 17, got an associate's degree while I was in, and my GI Bill went towards my bachelor's. I'm working towards my master's now. My husband and I have bought a house and have done well for ourselves. My parents, however, fully paid for my brother to try trade school twice. They've given him cash when he was behind on rent, and countless loans. They support him cosplaying as an adult. Meanwhile, they never paid for my wedding, education, nothing. I don't really care so much that they didn't give me money, but the disparity in how they've treated me versus my brother. Our parents are in their 60s now, and while they aren't that old, they're both in bad health and probably won't live another 10 years. They just recently started working on their will, and notified us that they were leaving almost everything to my brother, but they want me to be their medical power of attorney, manage their estate, etc. I told my parents to give my brother everything, and that I'm completely done with them. They told me to have some grace, and understand the fact that he isn't very capable and needs their support, even after they're gone. My mother had a doctor's appointment this morning, and asked me for a ride since she medically can't work. I told her to ask her favorite child or pay for an Uber. Things have been tense and hostile. My brother called me to apologize, and asked me to not be mad at him, but I told him that I'm not mad at him, I'm mad at our parents for not treating us equally, and he didn't do anything wrong. Ada. I meant to put disabled in quotation marks. My mother refers to my brother as disabled even though he isn't. She's had him tested for every kind of learning disability there is. He just has a below average IQ. She thinks that counts as a disability when it isn't. Stories number 3. 2 years ago I bought 5 Australian classic cars cheap for sale from the widow of a deceased backyard collector. The widow has died and now the grandson has threatened to sue as he wanted the cars. Grandson is a lawyer. I'm close friends with a coworker, and we've helped his mother in her 80s with house maintenance. His mother's neighbor, I'll call her Elaine, was in her 90s in 2016, when Elaine's husband who was in a home died. While doing maintenance on my coworker's mother's house, I drove there in my 1975 Falcon, and Elaine came out to ask me to have a look at some cars I might like that had belonged to her husband. I won't go into detail except 3 were in good drivable condition and worth a decent figure, and 2 more were ruined but good parts cars. At the time I couldn't afford anywhere near what they were genuinely worth. 2 are at least in the top 5 desirable Australian classics. I told her what they could fetch on the open market, but she was happy to take $5,000 for all 5 cars, well under their value. She wanted to make sure they went to someone who would appreciate them. And I paid for and collected them a week later, and I still have the 3 good ones, 2 now on historic registration and the other in storage. Elaine passed away in the middle of this year, and her grandson is on the warpath over the cars. He's found my contact details and phoned me several times threatening to sue for effectively stealing the cars from his grandmother, and has turned up at my front door once demanding the return of the cars. I have not been served or received anything in writing from him in a legal sense, only his business card, which sounds dodgy. I verified he's an actual lawyer as he claims through a website of his employer, which lists him with photo as specializing in commercial and insurance law just like his business card. I'd have expected if there was a real legal issue with the ownership of the cars it would be in relation to the grandmother's estate proceedings, and I'd be contacted by mail by someone acting as executor, not via phone calls and doorstop visits by one angry smug bastard acting like it's happening between me and him alone. Since I'm not a lawyer and my presumptions could be completely out, I'm posting here. If need be I could now afford the market price of all the cars. Is the grandson likely to have a case, and should I find a lawyer of my own? Comments. NAL. But if Elaine's husband left them to her in his will, she was free to do with them as she pleased. Ergo, the grandson has no claim. He'd be banking on your uncertainty of that to strong-arm you into cutting a deal. Don't ignore any official summons or claims, but you can safely tell him to sod off over the phone. If you want to get really petty, you could contact his law firm and complain about him, but as long as he wasn't intimating that his employer was in any way involved, it's none of their business, so they could tell you, cool, so what? Reply. Thanks. Banking on my uncertainty is a good way to describe the vibe I'm getting from him. He's not exactly throwing his law firm's name around, but it is on the business card he gave me. On what the cars are, I feel more comfortable describing them now after reading the responses here. One registered is an XY GT replica in nice shape built from a Fairmont. The other registered is an XB Fairmont coupe in excellent original condition, and the third I'm still working on getting back on the road is an XA sedan Falcon 506. The last 2 were wrecks and have already been parted out, and the good bits kept a spare XA sedan and an XW that looks like it had spent 30 years as yard art. The XW collapsed at the torque boxes and plenum while being trailered and nearly came off in 2 pieces, but worth it for the glass and trim alone. Update on the lawyer. Grandson threatening legal action over cars I bought from his grandmother. He's a real lawyer, but he lied about being her grandson. From my original post a couple of weeks ago I spoke with my coworker about the issue, and he talked with his mother who clued me into her neighbor, Elaine, from my previous post, not having any grandsons. My coworker's mother is still in contact with Elaine's son and daughter as they own and still work on Elaine's old house next door. She put them in contact with me. They wanted to know who it was who was actually threatening. What about the cars, as Elaine has no grandsons? And we spoke. They identified the lawyer grandson as an old ex he was once a partner of but not married to one of Elaine's granddaughters for a few years. He's also known to be in a lot of debt, which might explain desperate hunting for valuable items. Elaine's son and daughter reiterated that their dad had left instructions to Elaine for the cars to go to someone who cherished them, and they were happy they did, and glad to hear from me that they're still being looked after together. I haven't contacted the faux grandson's law firm yet. I have a lot of evidence of his misrepresentations to me, and after googling NSW law I'm not 100% sure of the legality of all of it, especially about sharing my home security and dashcam recordings directly to the other firm, or even speaking directly to them. I'll go through my own legal representation there as a filter on what I need to give them to make sure they know of his behavior linked to their firm. Small update. fake grandson came around twice more. I now have multiple records of him visiting my residence, threats via text and many phone calls to me after I asked him to not contact me again except in writing. Complaints have been made through my lawyer to his firm and relevant regulatory bodies. I informed him of the complaints on Thursday and reiterated not to contact me again, and I haven't heard a peep from him since. Last update, fake grandson had already been dismissed from the firm before my lawyer and I complained, and he already has complaints against him for other reasons. Stories number 4. Aita for telling my girlfriend that her friend is too ugly for my friend. I've, 29M, been with my GF, 28F, for the past 8 months and it has been amazing. I've met her friends and I really like them all, and she's met my friends and they all got along great. We are all hanging out together for the first time this weekend. The issue is that my GF has told one of her friends, let's call her Sue, that she thinks she would be perfect for one of my friends. Let's call him Mike. She has told her this multiple times, shown her pictures of him, and gotten her all excited. My problem with this is that I don't think they are a good match at all. Mike is a very good looking guy, in great shape, is 6 feet 2 inches and is a lawyer. He has always dated very conventionally attractive women. Sue is great and I really like her, but she is just not very conventionally attractive. She is overweight and just doesn't put much effort into her appearance in general. My GF has mentioned this potential match to me a few times, and I've always just kind of brushed it off with a, we'll see, or, you never know, hoping it would just fizzle out. But after we made plans to all hang out and after I found out she has been telling Sue about it, I said I just don't think they are a comparable match looks-wise, and that I think Sue would get her feelings hurt. I said I don't think they're a great match personality-wise either. Since he is super active and she is much more of a homebody, this caused a big fight, our first real fight, where she accused me of thinking my friends were better than her friends, asking who else I thought was ugly, etc. I was genuinely just trying to avoid an awkward situation. But I might have made it worse should I just have kept my mouth shut and let it happen. Stories number 5. Aita for saying a $2,500 hoodie that was gifted to my son was the dumbest thing I've ever heard of. This past holiday, my family gathered for our usual festive celebrations. As is tradition, gifts were exchanged, and one particular moment stood out. My teenage son unboxed a Gucci hoodie. He looked absolutely thrilled, and I could see a mix of shock and joy on his face. I'd heard of Gucci, of course, and I knew their stuff was pricey, so I figured the hoodie probably cost around $500. Even then, I thought that was extravagant. I didn't say a word about the hoodie while the kids were around. I didn't want to ruin the moment for my son or anyone else. The holidays are about creating good memories, not dampening spirits, so I smiled, let him enjoy his gift, and moved on with the day. Later that evening, after the kids had gone to bed, the adults were sitting around chatting about the gifts. Eventually, the Gucci hoodie came up. Someone mentioned the price, and when I asked how much, they said, $2,500. I was floored. I honestly didn't believe them. $2,500 for a hoodie. That couldn't be right. But sure enough, someone pulled up the exact hoodie online, and there it was, $2,500 staring back at me in bold numbers. My first reaction was to laugh. I couldn't help it. The absurdity of spending that much money on a single article of clothing was too much for me to process without thinking. I blurted out, "That's the dumbest thing I've ever seen." I immediately felt a shift in the room. Some people chuckled awkwardly, while others gave me a look like I'd just insulted their life choices. It turned out the gift had come from my sister-in-law, who is quite well off and loves spoiling her nieces and nephews. She looked visibly offended and said, "Well, I wanted to give him something special." At that moment, I realized I might have overstepped. My intention wasn't to insult her or belittle her generosity, but to me, spending $2,500 on a hoodie, especially for a teenager who could easily lose it, stain it, or outgrow it, seemed ridiculous. I tried to soften my stance, saying, "Look, it's your money, and you can spend it however you want. I just can't wrap my head around spending that much on a piece of clothing." My sister-in-law didn't seem appeased. She replied, "It's not just about the money, it's about giving them something memorable, something they'll cherish." I understood her point, but I couldn't shake my perspective. My son is a great kid, and he deserves nice things, but I can't help but feel this kind of extravagance sends the wrong message. He's still learning the value of money, and I worry that gifts like this could give him unrealistic expectations or skew his priorities. The discussion ended shortly after that, but the tension lingered the next morning. My son was still ecstatic about his hoodie and had no idea about the debate that had gone on. I didn't want to burst his bubble, so I kept my mouth shut. Since then, though, I've been stewing over what happened. I've heard through the family grapevine that my sister-in-law feels disrespected and is considering not being as generous in the future. Some family members agree with her and think I should have kept my opinion to myself. Others quietly agree with me but say I should have handled it better. So here I am, wondering, Aita, was I wrong for expressing my honest reaction, even if it wasn't the most tactful? Or is spending $2,500 on a hoodie as absurd as I think it is? Stories number 6. My husband said he'd divorce me and fight for sole custody if I went back to work. I'm F40, due to give birth in 3 weeks, and my husband, M36, dropped a bombshell on me recently that's left me reeling. He told me he doesn't want me to go back to work after our baby is born. His reasoning? He says, circumstances have changed, and to my utter shock, he claimed he'd pay me my current salary to stay home. This conversation was completely out of the blue. We'd never discussed me becoming a stay-at-home mom. In fact, throughout our relationship, he's always been supportive of my career. I've worked hard to get where I am, and my job isn't just a source of income, it's part of who I am. Yet now, he's insisting that I give it up. At first, I thought maybe this was just his way of trying to be protective or ensure we had more time for our baby, but then things started to feel more controlling. I began to piece together some behaviors that had seemed harmless at the time but now feel like red flags. For instance, a few months ago, he surprised me by converting our basement into a fully equipped gym. He presented it as a sweet gesture, saying, "Now you don't have to go to your gym anymore, you have everything here." I thought it was thoughtful at first, but looking back, it feels like a subtle way of limiting my independence. He also took over all the grocery shopping, which seemed considerate in theory, but when I offered to help or suggested doing it myself, he brushed me off or told me to just get groceries delivered instead. At the time, I didn't think much of it. He was just trying to make things easier for me during pregnancy, but now, it's adding to this picture of him slowly taking control over various aspects of my life. When I told him I had no intention of quitting my job, he became unyielding. He said his decision was final and that I should be grateful. He's even offering to pay me my salary to stay home. His tone was cold, as if this was some kind of magnanimous gift I should accept without question. Then he dropped the ultimate bombshell: if I went back to work, he'd divorce me and fight for sole custody of our baby. I was stunned. I couldn't believe he'd go to such extremes over this. He knows how much my career means to me. How could he even think this was okay? The idea that he'd use our child as leverage in this way is deeply unsettling. To make matters worse, he's trying to make me feel like I'm being unreasonable for wanting to continue working. He actually encouraged me to ask people if they'd quit their job if someone paid them the same amount to stay home. When I mentioned it to my mom, she immediately said she'd jump at the chance to quit. My husband, of course, gave me that smug "I told you so" look. But this isn't about money for me, it's about autonomy, identity, and choice. I love my job. It challenges me, fulfills me, and gives me a sense of purpose beyond being a wife and soon-to-be mom. Why should I have to give that up just because he's decided it's what's best? I didn't bother asking the rest of my family for their opinions because, frankly, it doesn't matter what they think. This is my life. But now I'm left grappling with some big questions. Why is he acting this way? Is this about control? Does he really believe he can dictate my life like this? And most importantly, what kind of environment are we creating for our child if this is how he approaches major decisions in our marriage? I can't stop thinking about his threat to fight for sole custody. It feels manipulative and cruel, especially when I've done nothing to suggest I'd be an unfit parent. I'm starting to feel like I don't even recognize the man I married. This wasn't the person who stood by me while I pursued my career dreams. The person who was once so proud of my accomplishments. I don't know what to do. Part of me wonders if he's just stressed about becoming a dad and is overcompensating by trying to control everything. But another part of me is deeply worried about what this behavior means for our future, and for my independence. If anyone has advice or insight, I'd appreciate it. Am I being unreasonable for wanting to keep working? Should I take his offer and stay home, even if it feels like I'm losing part of myself in the process? Or do I need to confront this behavior now before it becomes an even bigger problem down the road? Stories number 7. Do not tell them you're leaving until you're safe. Recently, I've seen posts from people planning to leave their partners, and telling them beforehand, "I'm here to urge you. Please don't." As tempting as it might be to confront your partner or declare your plans, it's critical to resist that urge until you are in a safe location. The sad reality is that while not every relationship ending turns violent, it happens often enough that the risk simply isn't worth taking. Even one case is too many. Recently, a devastating story in Canada resulted in the tragic loss of 3 lives during a situation where someone was leaving an abusive partner. Stories like this are heartbreaking reminders of how dangerous these moments can be. If you are in an abusive, manipulative, or controlling relationship and planning to leave, the most important thing you can do is make a plan. Steps to take before leaving. Keep your intentions to yourself. Don't let your partner know you're planning to leave. Even if they've never shown signs of violence, leaving can escalate their behavior in unpredictable ways. Reach out to trusted people. Share your plans only with those who are part of your support system and whom you trust completely. This could include close friends, family members, or professionals trained to assist in these situations. Document evidence. If you're in an abusive relationship, keep records of incidents, screenshots, emails, photos, or journal entries. This can be helpful later if you need to seek legal protection. Plan your exit carefully. Identify a safe place to go: a friend's house, a family member's home, or a shelter. Gather important documents, like your ID, birth certificate, and bank information. Pack essentials discreetly and have a bag ready to go. Notify authorities if needed. If you feel your safety is at risk, inform local law enforcement or a domestic violence hotline about your plans. They can provide guidance and, in some cases, physical protection during your departure. Secure your finances. Open a separate bank account, if possible, and keep money set aside for emergencies. Change your passwords for any shared accounts or devices to ensure your privacy. Why this matters. Leaving an abusive or toxic relationship is one of the bravest and most challenging steps anyone can take, but it's also one of the most dangerous moments in such relationships. Statistics show that the risk of harm increases significantly when someone tries to leave. It's crucial to prioritize your safety and protect yourself at all times. Stories number 8. Aita parents bought younger sister with serious issues a $25K car for Christmas while all I got was a phone case. Been needing a car for a couple years. Parents promised one, but gave her one instead. In my family there are 2 kids, sister and I, and my parents' Christmas was coming up and I've been wanting a car for about a year now because I've recently gotten my green peas, Australian thing that you can get when you're older than 18. My parents have mentioned in the past the idea of me paying for half and they'll cover the other half of a car. Under total 10,000 Australian dollars, I can afford this as I've saved most of my money from the 2 jobs I've kept since I was 14, so no biggie. I've also been relying on my mum to drive me to work for the last 4 years, so it was a smart move on their end rather than driving me the 30 minutes each way every shift I've got. My sister has just turned 17, which is when you can get your red peas in Australia. She's never had a job and has no money saved whatsoever. I love her a lot, but she's made some questionable decisions toward her future lately, but that's a separate story. My parents haven't seemed to care as much as they probably should have about these things, and are acting like everything's normal and all good. With Christmas coming up at the time and my birthday in early January, I thought this might be the time my parents get me that car I've wanted for the last year. As they've mentioned this idea for the last couple months, I'm obviously excited. The week leading up to Christmas, wondering what type of car they've bought or what they're looking at. I wake up Christmas Day around 10 a.m. to the sound of my younger sister crying, but in a happy way. I'm excited for her as she's obviously gotten something she's wanted. I walk downstairs and no one's at the Christmas tree, but a present with my name is sitting there. I figure I'll come back to it after I find my parents check the front door and it's wide open. Walk out to the driveway to see a brand new blue Hyundai i30 sitting in the driveway with a big ribbon on the front. Around $25K. My sister is at the side of it crying with my parents' arms around her. I ask who it's for and my parents tell me her. I probably could have handled this better, but I stormed back into the house, closed my door and stayed in there for the rest of the day. Didn't go with my family to see everyone else for Christmas because of how annoyed I was. My parents asked me why I did that when they got home, so I asked them why they bought her a car before me, who's older, willing to pay half, had a job, goes to school and has a stable plan for the future. They don't have an answer to that one, so they just stay quiet, and after a couple of minutes of awkward silence they walk out. By this point I've forgotten about the present they left under the tree downstairs, so I walk down to open it, and it's a new phone case from eBay, something I had no use for. I can't get over what they've done. Am I the asshole? Comments. NTA, everyone would be pissed at these disproportionate gifts. However, your birthday is in early January, could they be planning on getting you a car for your birthday? Reply, that could be a possibility, and I'll have to wait and see on that one, but now that I've thought about it more and this has happened, I've realized the favoritism has been clear all through my life. She's always gotten the better version of everything, their time and affection. They easily dedicate more of their time to her overall. Despite being essentially a drop kick, life sucks sometimes and I'm coming to learn that now. Reply when asked if anything was left out of the story. My reaction to the Christmas morning surprise was definitely a little toned down because it was too many characters, but there was a lot of swearing under my breath, punching pillows for a solid half hour, but other than that not much left out. Small update in the comments. Here, update. I've had a long and deep chat with my parents. I've told them exactly how I feel and what reminded them about what they promised. They sounded apologetic and I think maybe they're starting to understand my point of view a bit more. They said they didn't want to ruin anything but to wait until my birthday and see what happens. However, I feel like this wasn't their intention all along and they only said that to get me back on their side. I'll wait and see how it all turns out, but only time can tell. Thanks for all the comments and upvotes. I'm trying my best to reply to as many as possible, but it's gonna take some time. I hope everyone has a great holidays. And I'll update mid-Jan when I know the final outcome. Update. So, my birthday was 11th of January. My parents were seeming nicer than usual the entire week beforehand, which might have been because they had time off work or they had a surprise. The outcome was somewhere in the middle of what I was expecting though. On my birthday, they told me that they were sorry for buying my sister a car for Christmas when I deserved one and really needed it more than her, so they told me that they'd given me $10,000 to be able to afford something I'd really like and enjoy taking care of, and also to drive to and from work, to school, uni and everything else. The outcome couldn't have really been much better than this one, especially since they originally said they'd help with $5K toward the car I want, so I'm pretty happy with it. Not gonna complain anymore about the situation. I just hope they stop the favoritism and obvious extra love and support they give to my sister all the time. Thanks for all the support on the original post. I think we're around 77K upvotes as of now, which is pretty good, and thanks for all the messages with advice on the situation. Edit. The 10K upvotes make up for the 10K difference in money. thanks everyone. Stories number 9. Aita for wanting to split inheritance money equally between my kids when my wife wants to prioritize one. Recently came into some money and facing a difficult situation with my wife about how to distribute it between our 3 children. I believe the fairest approach is to split it equally 3 ways. My wife, however, wants to give a larger portion to one of our kids. The money is enough to make a meaningful difference in each child's life if split evenly. While I understand the instinct to give more help to a child who may need it, I worry about creating resentment and damaging sibling relationships. An equal split feels like the clearest way to show we value all our children the same. My wife hasn't spoken to me since our last discussion about this. She thinks I'm being unfair by not considering individual circumstances, but I keep thinking about how I'd feel as one of the kids getting less, like my parents valued me less than my sibling. The money is technically mine to distribute, but I want to handle this in a way that keeps peace in the family. Still, my gut says equal shares is right. Aita for insisting on an equal split rather than going along with my wife's wish to give more to one child. Stories number 10. Aita for telling my sister's boyfriend it's not his business if I don't want to be a stay-at-home mom. So I, F22, have an older sister, F28, she has 4 kids and she loves being a mom and wants to be a stay-at-home mom, and I encourage her to do whatever she wants. She herself understands that I have no desire to be a mom right now. If not ever. I have 2 other older sisters who are like me who doesn't want to be a stay-at-home mother. This is important. In the story, her boyfriend is mad at me, M27, cause he asked me when I'm going to settle down and that he can introduce me to his friend, M25, who wants a stay-at-home wife. I told him no, that I don't want to date anyone this year, and he got mad at me for some reason and asked me why. So I told him my ex-boyfriend left me with trust issues. My ex cheated on me. For 6 months into a 3-year relationship, he told me we broke up in 2023 and I should start getting back out there, and I told him it's not his business and he dropped it. But 2 days ago he asked me if I wanted to be a stay-at-home wife and mother, and I told him no, that I don't, and I'm not even sure if I want kids, let alone to be married. He got defensive since his mom was a stay-at-home wife and mom, and I told him I don't see anything wrong with being a stay-at-home mom, but that I don't personally want to depend on a man for anything, and he once again got defensive and said not all men are the same. I told him he was correct, but again not all women want the same thing. He said my sister wants to be a stay-at-home wife and mom, and I told him congratulations on finding that with my sister, but that I once again don't want to be a stay-at-home mom. He got mad cause he overheard my conversation about me getting an IUD as well and told me I'm ruining God's plan to make me a mom one day, and I told him whether I want kids or not is not his business. He got mad at me and told me to get out of his home, so I did. My older sister is asking me to apologize to him and to not get an IUD since if I get pregnant that it's God's plan, and she also told me I should reconsider being a stay-at-home mom wife. I told her not everyone has that dream, and she accused me of not respecting stay-at-home mothers' wives, which is nothing but lies. My 2 other older sisters are on my side and said my sister's boyfriend shouldn't be too concerned with how I live my life, and that if I don't want to depend on anyone for the rest of my life, that's my choice. He also said I'm going to hell for being bisexual, so I screamed that I guess his girlfriend, my sister, is also going to hell cause she's bisexual herself, which he already knows about. Now their friends are calling me an asshole, saying that he only cares about what I do with my body since it's God's body and I should respect it and become a mom soon. So am I the asshole for telling my sister's boyfriend it's not his business if I don't want to be a stay-at-home wife mom? TDL, my sister's boyfriend is upset I don't want to depend on a man and be a stay-at-home mom, and is also mad I'm thinking about getting a IUD in a few weeks, and that I shouldn't mess with my body since it's God's body not mine, so I told him to mind his business. Edit: to clarify, I did put this in some comments, but 3 out of her 4 kids aren't even his. My sister has a 7, 4, 3, and soon to be newborn. Edit 2. I get asked this question a lot about why I was discussing getting an IUD to my sister's boyfriend. I wasn't discussing it to him. Me and my 3 sisters were all discussing it at his house, but he wasn't there. He walked in though when I said I was thinking of getting a IUD, and that's when he butted into the conversation, and as soon as he said God's body not my body, me and my 2 other sisters started talking to him about it, and he raised his voice, so I raised mine and we eventually left since I don't like conflict at all. Update: Aita for telling my sister's boyfriend it's not his business if I don't want to be a stay-at-home mom. So this is the update. I already knew I was going to go no contact with her boyfriend, as I don't feel safe around him, but I went ahead and called my sister to tell her and why I chose no contact with, and she is now super mad at me saying I overreacted and all that fun stuff. So I asked her if they were going to apologize, and she said they don't owe me an apology and I owe him an apology. He overheard us on the phone and once again got into the conversation, and I told him I have nothing to say to him. He told me he wanted to know an answer to 2 of his questions. Why I don't want to be STHM, told him it's none of this business and to stay in his lane. Why I don't want to date marry his friend, told him that he isn't my type and never will be, and to not talk to me again. He told me if I don't stop overreacting I won't have anything to do with my nephews and niece, and that NGL got to me, and I told him for my mental health I'm done being / talking to him, and my sister said okay, you made your choice and we will make ours, so now I'm no no contact with both of them. Also found out my dad found out yesterday, and this morning after I was on phone with them he went and yelled at Josh and told him to back off and that his daughter wasn't for sale or anything like that, and they got into a fist fight and apparently my dad won. I'm not totally sure about that though, and my dad called me and apologized and asked me personally why I don't want to be a stay-at-home mother, so I told him the reason, which had to do with my dad, stepmom, and he apologized to me saying that he never meant to do that to her. He was very abusive to her. At one point I saw him choke her and screamed and he let her go but never apologized for it. So I decided to cut off my sister and her boyfriend, which sucked cause I won't able to see my niece and nephews anymore, but my mental health and physical health is more important to me tbh. Stories number 11. Aita for joking that I wished British people were real. I seriously can't believe I'm asking this, but here we go. I was watching a comedic British show with my friend, Carly, and we were having fun and making jokes and stuff like that. I said, I love this show, I wish British people were real, as a joke. Obviously it was supposed to be unserious and stupid, but Carly gave me a weird look. She said that's a weird thing to say. I was taken aback because she's seen me make much more weirder jokes than that, and I had no idea why she was hung up on this one, but I apologized and told her it was a joke and I obviously didn't think British people are not real. I followed up by saying that on a serious note I like British culture, otherwise I wouldn't be watching this show. She asked how I would have felt if she said Korean people weren't real. I'm Korean. I told her I would also take it as a joke as long as you're not offending me or my food or whatever. She scoffed and just kept watching. I didn't know this joke could be insensitive. I mean, I know it's kind of a stupid joke, but I didn't know it could offend like that. She's not even British. So I'm doubting myself on whether this was offensive or not. This is really dumb, I know, but I'd appreciate some other opinions on this. Stories number 12. Aita for shutting out my brother after he almost had sex with my girlfriend. I, 17M, was always close to my younger brother, 16M. Even though our age gap is really small, I was always his protector because he's struggled with lots of stuff. He's always been bullied, was always chubby, and even though he eats well and does move around, he just can't lose the weight. Something he hates because it made him a target for bullies forever. He's got social anxiety too and is just really hard on himself, so I took it upon myself to be his best friend and his brother, and I ran off more than few bullies over the years. He was always a priority for me, and even though we're teenagers and that doesn't always happen, I tried because I knew my brother struggled socially. Near the end of November he had a really shitty time. A girl he liked humiliated him as part of a prank by spending time with him because she knew he liked her and then mocking him for his weight and being weird. Then a few guys that tried to expose him in the locker room and called him names. It did a number on him and I was there. I invited him to come to a party with me and my girlfriend, 17F. 3 weeks ago I helped him find an outfit and stuff. I acted like his personal cheerleader in the run-up and I offered to introduce him to some people he might find some common interests with, which he said he was ready to try. We got there and he seemed to hit it off with one of the guys I introduced him to. I spent some time with my girlfriend and then she disappeared. I went to go check on my brother and I found the two of them together in a room on their own making out. They were as close to fully naked as you could get and I lost it. I broke up with her and told her to stay the hell away from me, and I went out to my car and called my parents to take him home and told them I could not be alone in the car with him. They had me stay in the car at least, so I did, and Dad drove to pick him up and brought him home. I told our parents what happened and they told me he wanted to apologize, but I refused to let him. My brother has tried to apologize and make it right, but I never let him finish and I walk away. I've shut him out. My parents asked me to try and listen and forgive and I said no. On Christmas Eve I told him to stop trying to talk to me because I am done with him. I told him he didn't deserve my help anymore and to forget about coming to me with his problems. I also said I wasted all that time with him when I could have been with friends who wouldn't stab me in the back. Since then he's become so depressed and my parents are worried, but I'm not. I'm still shutting him out. I don't think I'll try to change that either. My parents told me we can't let this end our relationship and they said he needs me. I told them that's too bad because I did so much for him and he'd have fucked my girlfriend if I hadn't walked in when I did. They told me he's a kid and I said yeah, but I was on his side the whole time and I chased away so many bullies for him, comforted him, listened to him, helped him with his problems. I told them as far as I was concerned it was a waste of time and I regret wasting my time. They told me it was a horrible way to think about my own brother and they said if he hurts himself because I shut him out like this they won't ever forgive me. I told them to help him because I'm done. But Aita. Stories number 13. Aita for telling my friends what my ex-friend said to me and basically ruining his social life. Please excuse my English, I am not a native speaker. I, 19, am currently in university and happen to enroll together with an old ex-friend, M20, into the same uni. We've been friends since the first grade and look and behavior scarily alike. He had told me that he likes me before, when we were 17, and I flat out refused him, but still stayed in contact. Now on to the problems. We've attended a party together, like we usually do, because we live on the same street and it's a lot safer for me to go with a man than alone. It all went well until he decided to ask me if he could drink his beer from my tits, which I obviously said no to. He then asked me if he could touch them and I said no again and left the party. The next day my friends asked me why I left the party and I've told them what happened. Well, problem is, today he came up to me and told me that my friends told what he said other people and now his social life is ruined, because people see him as a weirdo. I said sorry and rushed off. So I've been thinking about if I did mess up by telling my friends so. Aita. Stories number 14. Aita because I'm second guessing having kids due to our opposing views on vaccinating them. Hello Reddit, long time lurker and first time poster. Me, 35M, and my wife, 32F, are trying to have a baby, but we have since come to opposing views on whether to vaccinate any future children. I am for immunizations against things like meningitis and measles, mumps, rubella and polio as they are recommended. But my wife is not and prefers to wait at least 5 to 7 years before administering any vaccines as she is concerned about ASD or other harmful side effects based on what she has seen on TikTok and Instagram videos. I've since been putting having a child on hold until we can come to an agreement and my wife isn't happy. Aita. Stories number 15. My ex-best friend attempted to take her life. And I don't care, I haven't reached out. She slept with my boyfriend behind my back. We're both 20F and we've been friends since reception, 4 to 5 years old, UK thing. She was my sister, my rock. We stood by each other through everything. When my parents divorced, she was there to offer a shoulder for me to cry on when her grandmother died. I was there keeping her afloat throughout high school. I'd been dating my boyfriend, 21M, for about 3 years. We started dating in 6th form, a version of UK college, and he was my first serious relationship. I introduced him to my family. He was many of my firsts. He was sweet, a little awkward being a gamer guy, but he treated me to date nights and always made me feel special. Maybe this is me being young and dumb, but I thought I'd marry this guy someday. This was something I told my best friend. Well, about a month ago while my boyfriend was in the shower, I saw a text notification pop up on his phone. We look at each other's notifications all the time, so I grabbed his phone to see it. It was from her asking if they were still on for tonight and if she should wear his favorite dress. He told me he was hanging out with friends and going drinking. Him going drinking with friends wasn't unusual, so I never thought anything of it, but in hindsight I wonder how much of him going out was with friends and how much of it was going out with her. I saved screenshots of their conversations. I sent them to myself. I show him the messages when he came out of the bathroom and demanded he explained himself about them. I couldn't contain how upset and angry and hurt I was. An argument ensued where I told him he was disgusting. I left his place shortly after arriving home. I started getting bombarded with calls and texts from my best friend. I answered none of her calls. I couldn't stomach hearing her voice, but her texts ranged from, "She never meant to hurt me. My boyfriend hit on her first. It didn't mean anything." Then it got angry, saying I should hear her out if I was a real friend. I would take her calls. I'm being petty and childish for not listening to her side. Then back to sad, saying I was her closest friend in the world and she didn't want to lose me. My boyfriend was strangely quiet during this time. After a few days I got myself together enough to send them both messages. Maybe it was cowardly, but I didn't have the strength to call them. I told my now ex-boyfriend that we were done and I won't give cheaters any chances with me. He responded by trying to call me, but after the 3rd or 4th attempt, he gave up. He sent me a final message saying it wasn't that big of a deal, that they just fooled around, but agreeing he didn't want to date me anymore. My ex-best friend was more persistent after I told her I wanted nothing to do with her. Day after day I'd get messages and calls from her demanding to talk, demanding we resolve this, demanding I not say anything to anyone, saying she stopped seeing him, saying she'll kill herself if I don't talk to her. Really fucked up shit. I ended up confiding to a mutual friend about what was going on because I was seriously beginning to wonder if I was being a bitch. This friend reassured me that my feelings were justified. However, I wasn't expecting this friend to spread around what happened. The gossip spread like wildfire, and a few days ago my ex-best friend tried to take her life. I said nothing. I haven't visited her in the hospital. I haven't sent any messages to her family. Now her older sister keeps messaging me, telling me I'm a heartless bitch for leaving her at her lowest, for not trying to prevent this, and that everyone makes mistakes, and that her sister didn't intentionally hurt me. Maybe it does make me a heartless bitch, but I don't care. I'm relieved she survived. But I'll never forgive her. I'll never forgive her betrayal. She destroyed our friendship when she slept with my boyfriend. Comments. I needs to move forward in a healthy way without being bitter about her ex and the best friend. Thank you. I know, I don't think I'm over what they did to me. 3-year relationship and a 16-year friendship down the drain. I'll look into therapy, but between schoolwork and a part-time job it might be difficult. It's stupid because I wasn't feeling guilty she had attempted to take her life, but after what her sister said I was starting to feel guilty for not feeling guilty. If that makes sense. It was really getting to me, so I had to tell someone. I'm glad she survived, but I'm not looking forward to the next few days. I've already gotten messages from her cousin today. Commenter 1, good, don't contact her or her family. That's done for. You're not responsible for her mental health and make better friends, not gossiping ones like the one who told everyone. Just cut them off, and if your family tries to pressure you to be friends with her, warn them that you're not above going LC with them. Edit. Block them all as well. Reply, unfortunately, I don't think the friend I told had intended for it to get so bad. She really helped me understand that I wasn't being an awful person for not giving my ex-BFF a second chance. She cheered me up and made me feel better, but she told the rest of our friend group, and after that it was like Pandora's box. I've blocked my ex and my ex-BFF. I've blocked her sister as well, and it's looking like I'll need to block one of her cousins. This makes me a little sad. I was always so close with her cousins. My dad agrees with me 100% and told me I was doing the right thing. When I told my mom, I could tell she was disappointed and tried suggesting I talk to my ex-BFF, but I shut that down real quick and she backed off. Update: my ex-best friend attempted to take her life. Hey again, it's been a while. First I want to thank everyone for all of their comments and support. In hindsight, I know now I wasn't being a bitch, but in the moment when I was being bombarded by texts and calls from her family, it's hard not to let those thoughts mess with your head. I didn't know if I was going to post an update, but some things have happened, so this might get a little long, sorry. Giving fake names: ex-BFF is Nikki, her older sister is Tammy, ex-BF is Josh. I'll name anyone relevant as I go. So I mentioned in a comment that my mom wanted to speak to me later that day. I had a few replies warning me that she would try to pressure me into forgiving Nikki, and they were right. She came over to my dad's that evening and wanted a conversation in private. She asked if I'd spoken to Nikki yet. I said no. She asked if I was going to. I said no. I was trying to be as firm as possible because I knew what she was about to do. She asked, "Don't you think you should?" My response was, "No. I don't see why I should." I sent her a final message almost a month ago. This is where things began to really go south in the conversation. "Mom, love, she's in the hospital right now. She needs all the support she can get. You're meant to be her friend. I didn't even know about her condition until her mother called me." Me, really? I'm meant to be her friend after she slept with Josh behind my back. I didn't say anything about her because I didn't want to talk about her. Mom, are you really going to onto a silly grudge? I understand she hurt you, but she's hurting so much more right now. Love. Me, she's hurting. Mom, yes, you both are. I raised you to be a kind, forgiving person. Why can't you forgive her? Me, what? Like how dad should have forgiven you. This wasn't my finest moment. I didn't bring it up before because it wasn't relevant, but the reason why my parents divorced was due to infidelity on mom's end, and it wasn't only a one-time thing. Not that it matters even if it had been. But my mom always believed dad should have just forgiven her. I admit this was a low blow for me, and the conversation spiraled into an argument from there, with both of us saying some not so kind things to each other. Eventually I decided the conversation was over because we were just going around in circles and heading into yelling territory. So I told her to leave and I'll try talking to her again when we've both calmed down. When she was leaving, she said this: "I hope you're not as cruel as your father." I'm typically not an angry person, but this infuriated and hurt me. I lived 50-50 between my parents. They both made sure I had everything I could need or want, but she felt her situation and struggles were undeserved. Dad never helped with bills or payments that didn't involve me. She expected more. Cheaters always do. I didn't say anything when she left. I just blocked her number and social media accounts and cried. She cared more about the girl who had hurt her daughter than said daughter. She realized pretty quick what had happened and came back the next day, but dad told her I didn't want to talk to her. True, and she had to leave. It took maybe half an hour before she finally left. The new few days she kept trying to reach me through other people, but I stayed silent. The Friday after my post, I decided I felt calm enough to talk to her and unblocked her. We spoke over the phone, which wasn't as exciting as above. Basically it was her apologizing and telling me she was wrong for trying to force me to forgive Nikki, that she'll respect my decision, but tried to suggest I think about it. I very firmly told her I was not forgiving Nikki. She just said okay. Things didn't really feel the same with us. I couldn't bring myself to be as chatty with her as I was before, and it didn't help that she kept giving me updates about Nikki. The first time she did it, she told me Nikki had been put on a 72-hour psych hold, assessed and eventually released. I told her I didn't want any updates on Nikki's situation. I won't stop her from checking in, but I didn't want to be involved. She complained and said she thought I'd want to visit her, but I threatened to block her again if she kept pushing, and she shut up. Nothing was mentioned about Nikki for a couple of weeks before mom again broke my boundary and brought her up, telling me about how Josh had stopped talking to her and how Nikki needed a shoulder to cry on. I again told her I didn't want to know, and this was her last chance not to bring her up or I would cut her from my life. She complained again but eventually promised it wouldn't happen again. Maybe I should have learned from my mistakes because I know my mother. She doesn't take no for an answer. It was really quiet for a while. My friends and I had all basically carried on from what happened, and even though I know a couple of them still occasionally talk to Nikki, they never bring her up around me or tell her, I hope, how I'm doing. I thought I could finally close this chapter on my life. But nope. Today my mother called me and asked if I wanted to get lunch. I hadn't seen her in a while, so what was the harm? I head to the Weatherspoons we planned to eat at, and who do I find sitting with my mom, Nikki, and her sister Tammy. As soon as Nikki sees me, she gets up and tries to hug me, but I just raise a hand and take a step back, and this girl has the audacity to look upset. Mom immediately knows she's fucked up because she's scrambling with all of the excuses. It hurts to see you two fall apart like this. You were so close. I thought you'd forgive her by now, and my favorite, she made a mistake. she misses you. During this time, Nikki has been quiet and I can see Tammy's glaring at me. I'm just so fucking angry and upset. I honestly didn't think she'd pull something like this. I wanted to leave and cry, but I looked at Nikki and said, for someone who's made a mistake, she sure hasn't apologized for it. Yet, she had this guilty look on her face and muttered something about me having her blocked and having no way to. I said, is that really all you have to say? And she just looked at me confused. I was done. I turned to leave and her sister started yelling after me, saying that I owed Nikki a second chance with all the trauma I put her through. While Nikki was begging me to just listen to her and talk to her, I told them all to fuck off and never contact me again and left. I managed to get out of there before Tammy started a fight and went home, where I sent my mom a text a while ago telling her she'd better lose my number because she no longer has a spot in my life. Then I blocked her and just cried. My dad's been doing his best to comfort me, but it just hurts so bad that my own mother did this to me. So that's where things are at right now. I'll update if anything else happens, but this whole situation really fucking sucks. Comments. Commenter 1. Good on you for knowing your own morals and thoughts and not letting anyone else tell you how to think. I hope your dad supports you in this. Reply. My dad has been my rock through this. He's always had my back. We've spent the last few hours having some drinks and chatting just helped take my mind of things. My dad's to thank for that. He taught me to stand up for myself and told me, being kind doesn't mean be a wet towel. Makes me sad why he had to learn that lesson. Why was I still in touch with her mother when she cheated on my dad? Reply. Because she was still my mom. I was a teenager when my parents divorced, and it was my father who encouraged me to maintain a relationship with her. Update 2. Hey there, everyone, I'm the girl who made the "my ex-best friend attempted to take her life" posts. I didn't think labeling this post like that really fit. I first want to apologize for taking so long to give you an update and to also thank you for your kind words. I've not been able to reply to many messages, and I've had a lot, but I've taken the time to read through every single one and I appreciate every single one of you. This Christmas has been amazing. I spent it with my family, with my dad. I went out Boxing Day night with my friends to party hard and regret it harder the following day. I'm in a much better place than I was back in December 2023. That's kind of why I struggled to give you all an update, because around Christmas plus New Year's 2023 I was not in a good place. I really needed to focus on myself and work on getting myself in a better place. As of January 2024, I have been no contact with my mother. Unfortunately, I've seen her since then, and I've done my best to avoid talking to her in the 3 occasions I've had to be in the same place as her, not out of choice, mind you, but it is what it is. During Christmas 2023, she had expected that I was spending it with her and her side of the family given the events at that time. This was obviously not happening and my dad told her as much. She lost her mind. She refused to take no as an answer leading up to Christmas, to the point Dad and I left for my paternal aunt's house on Christmas Eve to spend the night there. According to a neighbor, my birth giver showed up pretty early in the morning to catch us leaving, but was irate to learn we already weren't there. Thankfully, my aunt had moved house quite recently, so my mother didn't know the new address, but we came home to parcels completely destroyed on our porch the following Boxing Day. There was even Christmas card labeled to me, but inside was a horrible letter from my mother, describing me as the worst daughter on the planet. That honestly destroyed me and I spent New Year's a mess. It's difficult cutting off your own mother. I spent half of January 2024 trying to fix things with her, but it came to a head when I realized I was the only one forced to compromise. I finally cut off contact, and it's been that way since. There's been more between then and now, but I think those are incidents I'll post on my Reddit page or in the comments of this post to prevent it from getting too long. In terms of Nikki, I've heard she's doing better. We've not spoken since my mother's lunch escapade, but she's found a job and, according to a mutual friend, found a new circle. Despite everything that she's put me through, I'm happy for her. It's almost 2 a.m. here in the UK, so if I suddenly stop responding to comments, I've fallen asleep. Stories number 16. My old boss gave my new boss a heads up that I'm a single parent with a chronic illness. Is this allowed? Company is over 200 people. I have a chronic illness and am ADA protected. Been employed for over 4 years. Switching teams in my company. My old boss met with my new boss to explain my work skills, show work I've done, and to let the new boss know what my goals are for the new year. The purpose of the meeting was to also discuss the transition. I was not invited to this meeting. My old boss, man, told me today that he gave my new boss, also man, a heads up that I'm a single mom and am sick a lot, and to give me grace because I am good at my job. Sounds nice at face value, but my boss has never given me or any of the other moms grace on our team. In fact, myself and my coworker are the last 2 moms on his team, and we were notified without warning a few weeks ago that we would be switching to a new team at the first of the year. He did this to the only other mom on our team last year, but she just quit instead of making the lateral move. I've been dealing with a chronic illness for a year, but attendance hasn't been an issue. My boss works from home more than I ever have, so I'm confused as to why this was brought up to my new boss. As a single mom, I already fight against the stigma that we are unreliable. Fought it to the detriment of my physical health. Now I feel like there's a stain on my reputation with my new manager before he even has gotten a chance to meet me. I'm not sure how to handle this. I don't know the exact details of what was said, and I'm only getting a buttoned-up retelling of what was said by my dishonest, morally corrupt old boss. Is it worth bringing up to HR? I'm not one to run to them, but this has been the final straw for me with this man's behavior. He uses our weekly touch bases to vent to me and the other women on the team about his abusive father and his health problems. He accused me and one other woman on the team, falsely and proven to be so, of stealing PTO after we returned from medical leave. He has yelled at me, worked me to the bone, and has shown me absolutely no grace. In the past 4 years I can't be around him anymore. I should add that even though I'm moving to a new team, I'll still be sitting with my old boss in his area until the new building can find space for me, which means probably indefinitely. That's why I'm curious about HR. I was hoping I could use this to motivate them to please move me away from this man. I asked over a year ago as a part of my Aita accommodation and was told they'd find me a spot when they could, and never heard anything else. I'm not using it as a threat. More of like, can you see why I've been so sick and stressed out by him now? Ugh. He also told me today he's gonna still have me do work for his team when they get busy, but he's not my boss anymore, so I'll be saying no to that one. Any advice or help is appreciated. More info if helpful. I've been a stellar employee, have accommodations in place, and have never missed a deadline. I've gotten nothing but top reviews and my work has won awards in the company. My performance isn't in question, it's the fact that when I do have to miss work, it's for a sick kid, which adds to that stigma, and I occasionally have to leave work early for doctor's appointments, which has already been discussed with and approved by HR. Stories number 17. Boomer tells me Trump's IQ is 160, Einstein's was 180 and Musk's is so high they can't measure it. I'm a UPSer. At the end of my shift, I hit up a taco truck right down the road from our building to take my personal time and eat inside of a discount bargain store. Tonight this old dude saw me in uniform and tried to convince me that he owns such a large share of UPS stock that they send him special, individualized reports to get him to vote a certain way for the company. He claimed he came from a special meeting today. That's what he was wearing, his button-up shirt. Yet he's shopping at a bargain outlet. No judgment, I shop there for snacks. But then he went all political, saying what I said in the title. I replied, why did he sue the school he attended, so they wouldn't release his grades? His reply, because he's so smart. How do we fix this idiocracy? It's not just boomers, intelligence is on the decline in the US. We fix it, or we all become musket trumpet puppets. Stories number 18. The night I sold a naked man something at AutoZone. One quiet evening during my shift as a manager at AutoZone, something happened that I will never forget. It started off as an ordinary slow night, few customers, some idle chatter with my coworkers, and the usual monotony of retail. But then, the phone rang, and everything changed. The voice on the other end of the line was an older gentleman. He sounded a bit hesitant, but there was a trace of amusement in his tone. He started with, I lost a bet, and now I have to go into AutoZone and buy something naked. I blinked, unsure if I'd heard him correctly. Was this some sort of prank call? Bored and intrigued, I decided to humor him. Sure, I replied, trying not to laugh. The store's pretty empty, so if you're quick, you can get it over with, but, make sure you wear socks. It's store policy. I hung up the phone, shook my head, and forgot about it almost immediately. It sounded like one of those random prank calls retail workers get from time to time. Nothing to worry about, right? 15 minutes later, I was in the middle of restocking shelves when the automatic doors slid open. At first, I didn't pay much attention, but when I glanced toward the entrance, my brain short-circuited. There he was, a man, completely naked, except for a pair of socks on his feet. I froze, unsure if this was real life. What the was all I could manage. I turned to my coworker, trying to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. His jaw was hanging open, eyes wide with disbelief. The man casually walked up to the counter, acting as if this were the most normal thing in the world. Hey, he said, clearly amused, I'm the guy from earlier. Can you sell me something real quick, please? I need to get this over with. The transaction. At this point, I was too stunned to do anything but comply. I mean, what was I supposed to do? Refuse service to a naked man on the grounds of public decency? Call the cops? Instead, I silently rang him up for whatever random item he'd grabbed off the shelves. Honestly, I can't even remember what it was. The whole time, my brain was screaming, he's naked. He's naked. What is happening? The man, completely unfazed, completed his transaction with a smile, grabbed his item, and left as casually as he'd entered. Aftermath. As soon as he walked out the door, my coworker and I burst into hysterical laughter. It was the kind of laugh that comes from pure disbelief, the kind you can't stop even if you try. What just happened? My coworker exclaimed, tears streaming down his face. I have no idea, I replied, still clutching my sides, but I think we've just been officially traumatized. For the rest of the night, we couldn't stop replaying the scene in our heads. Every time one of us tried to get back to work, the image of that man strolling in, completely naked except for his socks, would pop back into our minds. The legend lives on. Looking back, it's one of the strangest things that's ever happened to me in retail. I've dealt with angry customers, strange requests, and bizarre phone calls, but nothing compares to the night I sold a naked man something at AutoZone. I still wonder about him sometimes. Did he win the respect of his friends for completing the bet? Did he ever walk into another AutoZone fully clothed? Or was this just another day in the life of a man who lives by his own rules? All I know is that, to this day, whenever I tell this story, people's reactions are priceless, and while it was definitely one of the weirdest experiences of my life, it makes for one hell of a conversation starter. Moral of the story: if you ever lose a bet and have to walk into a store naked, at least wear socks. It's store policy. Stories number 19. I am 23, sustained an injury that will prevent me from having sex for a while. My 22F girlfriend wants to open our relationship until I recover. Is it time to end it? I am 23, have been with my girlfriend, 22F, for 2 years. 2 weeks ago I tore my hamstring while deadlifting. The pain is severe and I have to use crutches to walk, and even with the crutches it is still painful. According to the doctor, the injury requires at least 4 months to heal. My girlfriend took care of me since I got injured. Before the injury we had an active sex life that has to be postponed because the pain and the medications killed my sex drive, and even if I had a sex drive it would still be difficult and painful. I thought my girlfriend would be patient and understanding, but she wasn't. A few days ago she came up to me and told me how frustrating it is to abstain for that long and it is unfair to keep her waiting, that her libido is high and sex is a need for her. She then asked for a one-sided open relationship until I recover. Her justification is that it is only physical and she won't form any emotional bond with anybody. I was devastated when I heard that. Just when I thought the pain couldn't get any worse, my partner of 2 years is watching me experience excruciating pain, and instead of easing my pain she is adding to it. I rejected her idea and she was visibly frustrated. She tried to convince me again yesterday, but I shut her down again. I don't know what to do. I feel betrayed and I don't know if I should end the relationship. Stories number 20. Aita for telling my dad's parents that I don't want them at my graduation when they said I wasn't their real grandson. In November, my 18M dad's parents and my mom got into an argument because they said they decided to start a college fund for my brother, 11M. It wasn't even brought up. They just decided to share it on their own. My mom was confused since they mentioned it out of the blue, but thanked them. She asked them why they decided to make one now and why they brought it up. They said something about wanting to do it for their grandson and making sure he's set so he doesn't have to worry about paying for college. My mom then asked if they had started one for me, and they said I wasn't their real grandson. So the answer was no, and they didn't have one for me. They added something about how I'd get something else and accused my mom of expecting too much. For context, my dad adopted me when I was 5. He started dating my mom when I was 2. I don't know my biological father personally, but I know of him. He died when I was 3, and my mom told me he wasn't a good person and was in and out of jail. My dad is the only dad I've ever known, and I always thought his parents accepted me, but hearing them basically say I wasn't their real grandson hurt. It wasn't even about the money, it was the fact that I was excluded, and realizing the only reason why was because I wasn't my dad's biological son. The argument happened right in front of me and my brother just a few days before Thanksgiving. Since then, I've viewed my dad's parents differently and tried to keep my distance from them. They eventually apologized for saying I wasn't their real grandson, but only because my dad basically forced them to. Over time I realized I didn't really care anymore, but I just loved them more than they loved me. School is almost back in, and I take senior pictures soon. My dad's parents were over for Christmas, and my parents brought up me taking pictures that led to my dad's parents talking about how excited they were to see me graduate and how they couldn't wait. This confused me. It honestly did, because a month ago they basically told me that I wasn't their real grandson, and now they're excited to see their grandson graduate. I told them that they weren't coming and that I didn't want them there. Of course, this shocked my parents and my dad's parents. They asked why, and I told them I remember them saying I wasn't their real grandson, so it doesn't make sense for them to want to come to my graduation when they have no ties to me. My dad looked upset, and his parents were too. His parents basically said I should move on since they already apologized and meant no harm. I told them that when they apologized, it was only because my dad told them to. After that, it got awkward. This happened during Christmas, and I haven't seen them since. My dad told me they're hurt by what I said and that I should apologize and let them know I didn't mean it and that I'd still like them to come. I told him I meant what I said and that I don't want them there. It's not like I can stop them from coming anyway, but I'd prefer if they didn't since they have no reason to be there. He says their feelings are hurt. It's honestly embarrassing to think they've been my grandparents my whole life, only to find out they didn't even think of me as their grandson. My mom says she agrees with me but thinks I should consider my dad's feelings since this puts him in a hard position and wants everyone to be family. I'm not trying to hurt my dad, but I just don't want his parents at my graduation when I just found out they didn't accept me. Stories number 21. Should I ask my friend to buy me a new couch after breaking it due to her weight? My friend came into town to visit for a few days. She slept on the couch during the duration of her time here. When she left I noticed that my couch was sunken in, but went to kind of readjust the cushion and realized she actually broke the entire board and the fabric even tore where the wooden piece collapsed. I texted her and let her know she broke it, and even sent pictures, and her response was that she's sad. I feel bad because I know it wasn't intentional. However, I paid $1,500 for that couch and I can't just afford to fork out the money for a new one. Do I ask her to buy me a new couch? How should I go about this? ETA, she is over 350 pounds. I believe she said she's in the 400s from a conversation we had some time ago, but can't remember exactly. I am only adding this info because a comment mentioned it may be the quality of the couch. While that may be true, not sure, just wanted to add some context. ETA, I appreciate the advice received. I will not be asking her to pay for the couch nor to pitch in for a new one. I will chalk it up to a learning lesson, move on and start saving for a new one. Stories number 22. Aita for exposing my mom's boyfriend for making advances towards me, causing them to break up. Okay, so I, 21F, don't really know where to start, but I need to know if I'm the asshole for what happened. My mom, 43F, has been dating this guy, Dave, 45M, for about a year. At first, I didn't think anything of him. He was nice enough, just a bit distant, but over the past few months, he started making me feel weird. It started small, like he would compliment me on how I looked more than I was comfortable with. At first, I thought maybe I was just being sensitive, but then it got worse. He'd touch my shoulder or my back in ways that felt like way more than just a friendly gesture. I tried to brush it off, but I felt more and more uncomfortable the longer I was around him. A few weeks ago, I decided to confront him. I didn't want to make a big deal out of it, but I had to know if I was imagining things or if he was actually crossing lines. So I asked him, "Is there something going on? I feel like you're acting weird around me." He just laughed it off, saying I was paranoid and that I needed to chill. I let it go for a bit, but deep down, I knew I was right to be uneasy. Then, the worst thing happened one night when my mom was out of town with some friends. Dave came into my room while I was reading. He sat down on the bed and started talking about how I was growing up so well and how beautiful I looked. I could feel myself getting uncomfortable, and before I could even think about what was happening, he said something like, "I've always had a thing for younger women, you know," and he tried to kiss me. I was in complete shock. I pushed him away as hard as I could and told him to get out. He left, but it didn't feel like just a mistake on his part. It felt like a real threat. I was freaked out the whole night, couldn't sleep, and just felt completely violated. The next day, I didn't know what to do. I almost thought about just forgetting it and pretending it didn't happen, but then I realized that I couldn't just keep quiet about it. I had to protect myself, so I told my mom everything. When she got back, I was shaking when I told her what had happened, and she didn't take it well. At first, she actually accused me of trying to ruin her relationship. She said I was just being dramatic and that I should have talked to her about it before making such a big deal. But after some back and forth, she realized I wasn't lying. She kicked him out, and they broke up, but now she's really mad at me. She keeps saying that I ruined everything. I get that this is hard for her, but I don't regret what I did. So, Aita for exposing him, knowing it would end their relationship, even though it was for my own safety. Stories number 23. I, 26F, have been giving gifts to my boyfriend, 29M's family at many celebrations, without anything in return. Do I continue? My 26F boyfriend, 29M, and I have been together for 2 years. His family is very big on hosting and throwing celebrations, whereas my family tends to only do large holidays together, which will be mostly centered around food, as opposed to gifts. In the past year or so, I've been invited to his sister, 28F's birthday, his sister's baby shower, his mom, 60-something F's birthday, his sister's kid's birthday, 2F, his sister's housewarming, his family's Christmas, and a couple other miscellaneous celebrations. Every time I bring a gift, it's to the point where I've been spending more money on gifts for his family than my own parents and siblings. However, I've never gotten a gift from his family. It's not really their fault, intentional, as we will tend to do our own celebration for my birthday, so there's not really been an opportunity for his family to give me gifts, other than Christmas, but the one-sided gift giving is starting to get to me. I've considered that maybe there isn't an expectation for me to bring a gift, but for most of these celebrations I'm invited to, it would be very odd not to bring one, e.g., baby shower, birthdays. I've considered doing joint gifts with my boyfriend, but his mom also pointedly asked one time, "Is that the one from my name?" without me mentioning that I had even brought a gift, which made it seem like it was a given that I should have brought one. To be clear, I don't need any gifts from anyone in his family. I work a decently paying job, despite being in a HCOL city, and my boyfriend and I are both more financially comfortable for our age than his family. However, the sheer number of celebrations I'm being invited to with an unspoken obligation for gifts is starting to build up, especially because it feels a little like the relationship is one-sided, as I've never received anything in return. With Christmas coming up, I wonder if I should continue bringing gifts, or use this as an opportunity to work with my boyfriend and change our operating model, or do I just bring something that's cheaper, like some baked goods, chocolates? TLDR, I have gifted my boyfriend's family, his sister, his mom, his sister's kid, gifts on 10 occasions this year, but haven't received anything in return. With Christmas coming up, do I use this as an opportunity to discuss with my boyfriend about how this is unsustainable, or do I just tone down the spending on my side? Relevant comments. Comments 1. You and your boyfriend should be giving joint gifts, paid for by him, or you should stop gifting unless there's a clear expectation of reciprocity. You're not married to this guy and they're not your family. Comments 2. Most definitely start bringing some baked goods. Take on a baking hobby, but not too much time investment if you're not interested or want to give them that much effort. Or even going to the store's bakery section to get cookies and putting them on your own separate tray at home. If they ask why the sudden switch, you can tell them, baking from the heart is the best gift of all. Comments 3. That was my first thought. If that woman wants to ask who the gift is from, you can say, "Oh BF," or whoever, and when she hints at you, shove the tray of delicious food into your hands and say, "I brought this, go ahead and put it out for me." Kidding. Well, kidding on the last part, just bring food, that is your contribution if she ever tries to make you feel bad. Sass you. You can always go to, "Okay, not this, but a variation of, I am so sorry. I thought gifts were taboo since no one ever brought any to my birthday. Oh goodness, did not realize we were still doing that for some people. I just wanted to bring something and thought this effort of taking time to make food was enough." Edit typos. Comments 3. You state that the one-sided gift giving with your boyfriend's family is starting to get to you, but how can that be when the one-sided aspect is not intentional and merely a consequence of the very nature of the events that you have been invited to? For example, someone else's birthday, someone else's baby shower, someone else's housewarming. Rather than focusing on the positives that you were invited, you are solely focused on the negatives. This is compounded by the fact that you have labeled the in-laws with negative motives and actions when you state that there is an unspoken obligation for gifts and that your boyfriend's mother pointedly asked one time about a gift she attributed to you. First of all, unless that was the first event that you had ever been invited to, it is likely that your boyfriend's mother asked if that was the gift you were bringing because you had well established a pattern of bringing gifts. Secondly, is your experience going to other people's baby showers, birthdays, and whatnot, that you do not bring gifts and somehow this makes your boyfriend's family wrong? You've got the following options, not necessarily in order and not necessarily mutually exclusive. 2. Continue with doing individual gifts, but reduce the investment costs. As you suggested, if the gift is thoughtful and took time and effort, like a baked good, it will be appreciated again. Do not worry about what others think. The old adage, "It is the thought that counts," applies here. 3. Change your attitude. Rather than being annoyed by being included, and annoyed that you are not receiving a gift at a baby shower, or birthday, or housewarming, when pretty much that is not the norm, look at it like his family thinks enough of you to include you. In reality, they are not obligated to include you. And rather than being skeptical that they do for the reason of a gift grab, give them the benefit of the doubt. Update. TLDR of my original post is that I have gifted my boyfriend's family, his sister, his mom, his sister's kid, gifts on 10 occasions this year, probably spent $800 total, but haven't received anything in return, and was wondering if I should switch to doing joint gifts with my boyfriend. Some commenters suggested that I was not being appreciative of being invited to family events, so I thought that maybe I was being too harsh. Well, with Christmas coming up, I, 26F, was invited to Christmas with my boyfriend, 29M's family, but given his sister, 28F, just had her second child with some health complications. We had a conversation and decided it made sense for me not to join them as I've been flying a lot for work and don't want to put the newborn at risk. That made the conversation about doing joint gifts super easy with my boyfriend, since I physically wouldn't be there. Out of the blue yesterday though, I received a text from my boyfriend's sister reminding me of their house address to ship gifts to, even though I've driven there multiple times. Then, about an hour later, I receive a text from my boyfriend's mother telling me about how the sister's daughter, toddler, has been a little upset recently given the new baby, and that it would be great to get the toddler an extra gift to make her feel special, since the attention has been on the newborn. On top of whatever I was planning to get the newborn, she did top it off with a, "You always give such nice gifts," as a nice compliment. For context, I grew up in a family that taught me not to buy gifts that you wouldn't want to receive. I bought very nice things for boyfriend's sister's kids for her daughter's birthday, toys plus nice name brand clothing like Nike, North Face, and the latest baby shower for the newborn. I brought this to the attention of my boyfriend, and he mentioned he'd let them know that he was bringing our gifts, but I have a feeling they'll misinterpret to think that we're still getting separate gifts. We will see how it goes next week. But I've been super put off by the texts that I've gotten from his family. It seems pretty blatant that they want gifts from me and are expecting it, but I'm glad that my boyfriend is planning to take care of the communications. Relevant comments. Comments 1. Text back, "Oh yeah. Thanks for the reminder, here's mine." Comments 2. This is a BF problem, just that he's let this go on so long. But, he doesn't need to be telling them he's bring the gifts. What he needs to tell them is, "Here is OP's wish list, because I know you didn't just reach out to someone not coming to our celebration to ask for gifts when you had no plans for giving her a gift yet again, and yes, I've noticed you haven't once returned any of the great gifts she's given you when it's her turn to get gifts, so, I'll be bringing try gifts from us, and will happily bring her back your gifts to her." Comments 3. Who the hells takes gifts but doesn't give? To the point where they call you for the gift. Also, people saying being invited is the gift, are takers. They don't give gifts, so don't listen to their advice. What kind of cheap-ass family are you dealing with? You sure you want to be married into this type of family? Reply comment update. Did not expect this to have so many comments. I read through a bunch of the comments and took some inspiration from here, and what I ended up doing, I'll make a longer comment/post tomorrow when I have time, as I'm still with family for Christmas. But the quick update is that I did not spend any dollar on gifts for his family this Christmas, but I helped BF pick some out that he bought. Boyfriend took care of most the communication, so I just texted back some pleasant, thank you. I'll remind BF name. Happy holidays. To his fam some minor drama unfolded and I'll detail tomorrow, but overall I'm happy with the way BF resolved it. To answer some of the other questions, no, I did not get Christmas gifts last year either from his fam. The excuse was that we did a late celebration on the 27th last year with his fam and so that is why they didn't give me anything. Though I still brought gifts, boyfriend didn't intervene earlier because he didn't know that they had texted me directly, and honestly he's just kind of oblivious and didn't realize how many celebrations/events we'd gone to as it's been a hectic year for both of us with work. Yes. We have a pretty high income disparity between me and BF and his family. His parents have some debt and are tight on money and his sister's husband is paying off a mortgage with expenses for 2 children. Especially since his sister was laid off for most the year and then was pregnant had a kid he probably makes what his sister plus sister-in-law made before she was laid off combined, and I make a good amount more than his sister-in-law too. I honestly don't need gifts from them, but it would be nice to have some reciprocation in some other way. Even a thank you card or something. Comments 4. If their money is tight and they can't afford gifts, how can they afford to host all these grand parties? Do they give your boyfriend gifts? Reply. Credit cards hence the debt. Yes, they get him gifts, nothing super expensive, but still gifts here and there. Edit. Honestly, the celebrations are also a way for them to get gifts, save on certain costs, baby shower registries, etc. Stories number 24. Aita for not sharing information about or allowing my parents to see my kids until my mom apologizes. My wife, 30F, and I, 31M, have 2 children, 2F and 5mm. Since our daughter was born, we have had a variety of instances where my mom has either not asked for permission on things or has just flat out ignored boundaries. The character limit is too short to share all of them, so I will summarize the major ones. Shared the news about our daughter's birth with the whole family when I only gave permission to tell grandparents. She said that's just how her family operates. Kissed our daughter on the forehead when she was 2 weeks old. Our daughter was a preemie and it was peak COVID/RSV season and my mom had a cold sore so she didn't kiss us. She told us it was a butterfly kiss and not a real kiss, and I had kids so I know what I'm doing. When we found out that we were expecting our second, we chose not to share the news with anyone outside of our parents until the 3rd trimester. When I told my mom she couldn't share until we were ready, she got upset for several months. Any phone calls with her featured her yelling about how she thinks it's stupid not to share, how she can't be excited if she can't share, how she feels like she's lying to her family by not sharing, etc. Since I wasn't saying anything outside of, this is our decision and we will share when we are ready, my mom called my mill. I confronted her on this and how my wife and I felt like she was trying to go behind our backs for info. She responded with, I don't fucking care about your feelings. This was April. Things blew up in June when we went to my parents for my grandfather's birthday. My wife avoided my mom because she didn't want to start anything at a family event. When we were getting ready to leave, my mom attempted to hug my wife and she declined. Mom then tried hugging our daughter who was being held by my wife. We have a rule about asking to hug before hugging to start teaching our daughter body autonomy. My mom has been told about this rule. My wife pulled our daughter away and was about to remind my mom of the rule when my mom blew up and began shouting that my wife needed to let things go. Things devolved from there and ended with me shouting at my mom for her ignoring boundaries in favor of having her way. She told us not to come back and slammed the door behind us. It has now been almost 7 months since this last incident. We have not seen my parents since. They know we have son but have never met him and have not seen any pictures of him or our daughter outside of a family picture we put on FB announcing his birth. We aren't backing down from this until my mom owns up to her actions. This made it so the rest of family did not see the kids over the holidays due to my mom be at the parties. Family members told me that we needed to let go, that we were weaponsing the kids, and just how terrible we were in general for making my mom an emotional wreck. We are pretty sure that we are correct with our boundaries, but I want to get some outside and unbiased opinions. Stories number 25. I bought my BF 2 gifts. Which one he gets is solely based on his gift to me. Let me explain. I've had some bad luck with ex-boyfriends and gifts. I'm a thoughtful gift giver in general, even if it's Secret Santa. I'm getting something that anyone can make use of, no random junk from the checkout line shelves or gift sets that'll collect dust 9 times out of 10. Anyways, my new BF, together since September, is a great guy so far. I'm really happy, and I'm excited. This is our first Christmas. We both have big families, so we're doing our private Christmas today instead, especially since he's a big Christmas person like me, so he says, but history has jaded me, although I want to believe he has good gifting skills. So he says, I came up with a plan. Under my tree has 2 gifts for him, one that's low effort but he'll like, one that's tougher to come by and he'll love. So, I'm gonna open my gifts first and based on what I see and the effort, I'll decide in that moment which package I'm grabbing when it's his turn. Everything I got is in the return window limit. LOL. I wanna be clear, this is not about how much money is spent, it's about if he really thinks, pays attention, and takes the time consider what he's picking. I've spent hours thinking and planning gifts, collecting items if I need to, etc., only to be given a gift card, to the fucking mall I work in. Or a necklace and earrings from a chain jewelry store, think K or People's, 3 years in a row or nothing because they didn't have time or some nonsense, but they'll make it up to me later. This is different men. But this is a pattern, and I've seen on socials that I'm not the only person who's been a victim of men giving thoughtless presents. I know women can be selfish and shit givers as well, but I'm straight, so I'm speaking about my experience with men, alright, and it seems like men tend to be worse at it from what I've seen/heard from other women. Today will determine how I give to him going forward, birthdays, anniversaries, and so on. I really hope he does well. I really do enjoy giving gifts and making PPL happy with them, but self-sacrifice is no longer something I'm willing to do, especially not during my favorite holiday. This is silly, I'm aware, but wish him luck, and may the odds be ever in his favor, because I'd love to give him both gifts if I'm being completely honest, but that's big wishful thinking on my part. Mary, December 26th, y'all. Relevant comments. Comments 1. I can see why this might seem fun, but it sounds like you're bringing grudges from previous relationships into a new one, which isn't healthy. Just have fun giving people gifts they'll like. If he gets you something you really don't like, then speak to him about it. Comments 2. For real, imagine how you'd feel exchanging gifts for the first time with a new partner and finding out that they had a good boy present and a low effort present ready to go as a test/reward, all because they're still fixated on the perceived inequality of gifting in past relationships. Ick about other people, but I have enough self-respect to smile and nod through their gifting test and then leave a boyfriend-shaped dust cloud where I once was, and I still wouldn't take that frustration out on a future partner though, lol. Comments 3. I'm a guy who loves to read 2x posts so I can be a better partner, so grain of salt here, as I really want to respect your autonomy to make your own decisions in your relationship. Have you communicated to him that you are looking for someone who puts thoughtful effort into gift giving? Additionally, have you told him the type of gifts that you have received or desired that have made you feel like effort was given? I'm asking because it might help in the long run if you haven't communicated these things. Anyway, just a guy here, apologies for invading this space. I really respect your stance and intentions. I hope your expectations are exceeded. Reply. Thank you for asking so thoughtfully. Yeah, we have talked about past experiences with efforts, gift giving, reciprocation, many times from past relationship, not only pertaining to Christmas or physical items. We've even talked about how we plan gifts too, so for the last month, at least, we've been sharing what we're getting for our parents, siblings, friends, and the whys behind the choices, so it seems like we both have similar gifting styles. Now I have to wait to see if it's true he talks the talk, but does he walk the walk, lol. Comments 4. So what happens if he did spend time and effort on your gift and it's just not something you want? Reply. For effort, and he'll still get the better gift. If not both, I'll make use of what I get one way or another if that's the case, but I can't imagine him getting me something so left field that I wouldn't be able to enjoy his efforts and appreciate what he gave me, although I was let down by the repeated jewelry gifts by my ex. Please believe I wore them every chance I got because I know it made him happy, and it was pretty regardless of if I wanted them or not. Comments 5. My wife and I used to both try very hard with the gifts. We knew each other very well and put lots of effort into what we got for the other person. We'd then spend hours wrapping them to get that perfect aesthetic. After many years though, we decided that the effort was better spent on different things also. I think we recognize that objects don't really make us happy. We've basically decentered gifts as part of the holiday. Things are less stressful, more fun, less expensive, and we have less clutter around the house. Reply. I'm totally cool with decentering gifts altogether someday, especially after being married for a while, because what is there really left to get, especially if you're giving multiple times a year? I prefer experiences over objects as is, since experiences could be for both of us and help keep our bond strong. Sounds like you and your wife have it figured out, and I love that, because it means you have a genuine understanding of each other and where you're at as unit. Comment 6. You're not ready for a serious relationship. It sounds like you need a year or 3 to get over past relationships and grow up a little. Let this guy go, and go figure yourself out, because this behavior is low-key toxic. Update. As Professor Farnsworth says, good news, everyone. So, he got the more thoughtful/better gift. And I'll be saving the other for his birthday coming up soon. My gifts were really nice, and consider it. A few things made me remember some randomish questions he's asked, trying to see if I'd like this or that. He loved his gifts, the main one, I always do little trinkets/things in a grand finale, lol. His smile, ugh, made my heart so full. He was so happy, and excited. Kisses galore, smiling face with hearts. I didn't give him both gifts for the sole reason that I didn't want to outdo him and make him feel guilty or anything, since he did ask how much I spent, how I even found it, etc. And he said that I shouldn't have because I surprise him with random things all the time as he was looking over everything I got him. My response was basically that I do what I can to make the people I care about happy or their life easier. If I got it, we got it. Finally, yes, I did tell him later in the evening about this plan and the why, and before I could finish he said, given what you told me about your exes, I don't even blame you for doing something ridiculous, and we laughed and went back to talking and watching TV. So although I get why some PPL said, this is so toxic, I truly hope you never understand the feeling I was trying to avoid. If you go back and read the comments, I explained more for those who actually wanted to listen, and I had every intention of telling him at some point either way, because we're pretty open with each other when it comes to our pasts and how it affected us. And with that, I admit maybe I'm a bit crazy, but if it keeps me from being let down or hurt again, then I'll take being called crazy over crying in my apartment with my cat trying to rationalize why someone's inconsiderate adult son didn't feel the need to think of me, or why he didn't get me anything at all during the most wonderful time of the year. I hope everyone had the best holiday they could, and cheers to 2025. Relevant comments. I explained some of her past experiences. I remember one of my exes, our first and only Christmas together, since he ended up being a terrible BF after about a year. I even said let's not do gifts that year since money was tight for both of us. He insisted we do gifts, already had things in mind, and completely made me feel silly for proposing the idea. Christmas comes, lo and behold, he waits until after opening his gifts to say he never got around to shopping for my noops and for my birthday. Nothing again. The same boy who practically begged me to give him a chance for years. SMH. Comments 1. I unfortunately completely understand what it feels like to put so much thought and effort into gifts only for your partner to throw you some thoughtless token. I'm glad your partner wasn't like that, and I'm glad he took it with humor. He sounds like a keeper. Comments 2. Was this your first gift-giving occasion as a couple? I'm hoping this reassures you and doesn't have to happen every birthday and Christmas, etc. Reply. Yup, first Christmas and first of any milestone overall. We made it official in September, and our birthday are earlier in the year. I just wanted to see how he operates when it comes to gifting and the holidays, see if I should or shouldn't put in effort with gifts or keep it really simple. I prefer to go all out, but I didn't want to feel like a fool again for doing so yeah. First and last time for this. LOL. Research complete. Comments 3. Finally, yes, I did tell him later in the evening about this plan and the why, and before I could finish he said, given what you told me about your exes, I don't even blame you for doing something ridiculous, and we laughed and went back to talking and watching TV. He said this out loud, but you know that this is absolutely a red flag about your character and how the relationship will continue. Bad gift, good gift based on his gift is absolutely ridiculous if it matters that much to you. If he didn't put any effort into your gift, then just reconsider whether or not it is a relationship you want to be in, because I assure you, that is on his mind now. Comments 4. Yeah, reading the original post gave me the ick so badly. I understand being burnt by past relationships and having trauma around that, but that's what therapy is for. Testing your partner is just so inherently unhealthy in any relationship. If my partner did that to me and then told me about it, that relationship would be over by New Year's. I'd be wondering what other tests are in store. Comments 5. I'm glad you said it. It's not about constantly testing him, it's about the one test being a red flag. I bet if the roles were reversed she'd be upset to find out he was testing her to see if she secretly measured up. A lot of guys suck, 100%, but you can't be bringing those past guys into this current relationship if you want it to have a chance. Stories number 26. How do I, 31F, handle my awful SIL, 33F, at my boyfriend, 30M's family Christmas? Edit. Thank you all for the comments. I am going to push pause on this account until after the holidays and will post an update if anything interesting happens. I've decided to go into this armed with a couple of the quick and simple responses that people have suggested in here. My favorites are, wow, what an inappropriate comment, or I can't believe you said that out loud. James and I will chat too after the holidays. I agree he needs to set better boundaries, but we can have that conversation privately after the chaos of Christmas. Happy holidays all. My 31F boyfriend, 30M, and I have been together for 3 years. We have gotten to know each other's families quite well as we live nearby and can visit often. I love my boyfriend's family, except his brothers. 33M, long-term girlfriend, 33F, called her SIL for simplicity in the title. Let's call my boyfriend James, his brother will be Mike, and his brother's girlfriend Kelly. We are polar opposites, but that's not why she's terrible. She makes wildly inappropriate comments to everyone around her, has no sense of self-awareness, and thinks the world owes her something. Kelly and Mike are not in a good financial position. Kelly is unable to work because of her traumatic childhood, and Mike works 50+ hours/week in construction. He busts his butt to provide for them. And she spends her days at the local bar with the local riffraff, then complains about not being able to afford to buy a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom home on several acres of land in our HCOL state. For Christmas, my boyfriend's parents are hosting celebrations and we are doing a small gift exchange with a max budget of $10 per person, and then everyone drew a name from a hat and we get that person one gift of up to $50. Total spend is $100 each, so everyone gets one big gift and a couple of small things at first. We had no budget, but Mike was concerned about being able to participate, so we set a budget and James slipped Mike $200 so he wouldn't have to worry about it. It's not Secret Santa, so everyone knows who drew which name. James drew Kelly's name, and immediately she started sending him links to things that were $100 plus for him to get her. He reminded her of the budget that we set, to benefit them, and she said, "You can afford it, these are the only things I want," and made it worse by saying, "Mike drew your name." And we're getting you something nicer than $50. I'll give her the benefit of the doubt that she may not know James gave Mike the $200 to help them out. She hounded James about it being unfair that they suffer while we have so much, so clearly he can afford to get her a nicer gift. Both James and I are very comfortable, but we've both worked hard for everything we have. She insulted him, called him greedy, told him that he's selfish and only cares about himself and the fancy life he lives with me, and that Mike and her resent him for abandoning them. James is the kind of person who would give his last dollar away, the shoes off his feet in a snowstorm, and who acts tough but is actually just a big softie. A lot of people take advantage of that, and he caved. He got her the fancy over-budget gift. James and Mike's parents just kind of roll their eyes at her when she makes weird inappropriate comments, and their mom has confided in me that she's happy at least James picked a normal one, and that she's glad she doesn't have to take care of both of her sons into adulthood. They are completely unaware of what's happened behind the scenes between Kelly and James. I'm not afraid of confrontation, but don't want to ruin Christmas by losing my shit at her. She's bound to say something or do something because she always does, and I really don't know if I can bite my tongue much longer. I am furious at her. I feel like I'm going to explode if she makes one offhanded comment or snide remark. That I'm betting it'll only take 20 minutes for her to say something stupid. It's not about the gift. We don't care about the money. To me, this is icing on the cake of her already poor behavior to James. It's just another thing he wants to let slide because he loves his brother, and it makes Mike's life easier if Kelly is happy and not complaining. How can I navigate this and stop her from taking advantage of James in the future? Talking to her rationally is futile. James did try that, and that's how we're here. Comment 1. Whenever she says something stupid, reply with a simple, "What an odd thing to say," and walk away. You can omit the odd part when it doesn't fit the statement. Reply. As an example of the things she says, my boyfriend has a cousin who had a car accident and one of their legs has a severe burn scar on it that covers like one half their leg. Cousin was wearing shorts when he first met Kelly. First words out of Kelly's mouth were, "Whoa. What the fuck happened to your leg?" It's awful. I do like your suggestion. My facial expressions usually speak for me, but with how she spoke to James, I'm livid. Thank you to everyone who commented. This is a rather anticlimactic update. Christmas was actually lovely. Kelly behaved for the most part, though of course made a few left field comments. Using MIL and FIL for simplicity, but my boyfriend and I are not married. Here are some examples. MIL opened a gift, it was a turkey baster. Kelly exclaims, "Whoa." FIL. Trying to get her pregnant again. MIL and FIL are in their 70s. Awkward pause. Turns to me and James and goes, "Actually, I'm surprised it's not you," and on recommendations from Reddit I laughingly responded, "What an uncomfortable thing to say." Kelly went on about how she expected after we took a 2-week vacation, we would be sharing a pregnancy announcement. I responded, "Well, that's kind of weird." I got James a gag gift that says some sexual innuendo on the butt of a pair of pants. Kelly kept making comments about, "No one needs to know the details of your sex life," despite that the pants were a joke. This was repeated all night, but I just ignored it. Otherwise we had a great time and a great family gathering. I wish I had something more exciting, but the answer I got helped me have a few responses in my arsenal to respond to her weird comments, and otherwise I ignored her. Stories number 27. Wibta. If I limit my parents' future time with their grandchild after they suddenly and unexpectedly withdrew their help. TLDR, my out-of-state parents packed their bags and left my wife alone with newborn the day after my surgery, seemingly as punishment because they felt slighted. Now I have to mediate. Backstory. This happened a couple weeks ago. I, 33 just had a serious heart surgery and will be recovering from until early February. My parents, who live out of state, upon hearing of this surgery, quickly invited themselves over that week, saying they would stay with my wife the entire week, Sunday to Sunday, to help out around the house, see and help with the new baby, and to see me in the hospital. Great, I thought the baby is a 2-person job and the help will make her life easier that week. From here and going to state the timeline, my surgery was on Tuesday. Tuesday night, day of my surgery, my wife comes home from the hospital where she was most of the day and goes upstairs to pump for the baby. She did not greet my parents when she got home as she was emotionally exhausted and in pain from not pumping the entire day. My parents feel slighted. She didn't even say hi, and after 20 minutes go and hand her the baby, which she takes off their hands with no problem, and this ends the night. Wednesday 2 p.m. The stupid drama day. My wife is leaving the hospital after seeing me choke on a breathing tube in the ICU for 3 hours, and she received a text from my father, "Hey, I will be at the hospital," and his wife, my stepmom, is leaving and will stay at my stepsister's place tonight. My wife, "Okay, then I will need to ask my mother to come over and help tonight." So my wife drove far to pick up her mom, who doesn't drive but was thankfully able to help. My dad tried calling her during her drive, but she did not pick up the calls. This infuriated my parents. I think so during this car ride they decided they would be not coming back for the rest of the week. Opinion. I assume this is the Petty Olympics and they were going for gold medals, at the expense of my newborn's care and well-being. Anyways, when she got to our house my parents' bags were packed and they told my wife they will be staying the rest of the week at my little sister's and would not be helping my wife with the baby. Thursday, My breathing tube is out and I'm in serious pain. My dad stays with me in the hospital until 2 a.m. I heard about this and pretty much just grill him as to why he left and what went wrong and that this is not what the week was supposed to go like. I am mad. He is ex-military and I told him he abandoned his post. He cannot explain his actions except for pointing to Tuesday where my wife did not say hi. He realizes he messed up and just apologizes completely, that he wants to see his granddaughter. I told him to just stay with my stepsister the rest of the week like he decided that he made this decision, not anyone else, etc. Conclusion. I told my dad that I am mad and will not be talking with him until after my recovery, which he respected. My wife is just going to follow my lead. My biological sister, who my stepmom black steeped out of that side of the family, wants me to cut him off like she did. My actions. 1. Just tell him and his wife he can't be trusted with care of his grandchild and that his interaction with her must be supervised and therefore limited. I can't trust them with care because they might just randomly leave. 2. They can't attribute non-action as malice and need to give my wife respect. Also, I don't know how they attributed so much malice to my wife's actions that they just pack and leave. Everyone loves my wife and she is the sweetest thing, that sometimes won't pick up a call. I guess. Are my actions unreasonable or should I just try to drop this whole thing? Stories number 28. Aita for waiting to divorce my wife until it was a good time for me. My ex-wife and I were married for over 20 years and have 2 children together, 22M and 20F. For most of my marriage, things were pretty balanced. We both shared housework and childcare responsibilities. We were each stay-at-home parents for over a year after each child, her with our son and me with our son and daughter. We always had agreements on how we wanted to divide work and generally had decent communication. This changed when my oldest went to high school. My wife got a new job that was both very demanding on her time and was 50% travel. This meant that I had to handle everything about 2 weeks per month, and when she was home she wasn't holding up her side of the work with agreements. I did my best to be accommodating and we worked through redistributing chores, housework a few times to make it fit her schedule better, but a lot of the work just kept falling to me. When the pandemic happened, things got worse, but I tried to just suck it up because I knew the lockdowns were temporary. Finally, when things opened back up, things continued to decline and I asked to go to counseling. She missed a lot of our meetings and just didn't commit to it. At this point I decided that I wanted a divorce. Unfortunately, it was a really tough time for the family. My son was getting ready for college in person after his freshman year being remote, which was both financial and logistical challenge. At the same time my daughter was also having some issues with depression and I had become her main support person. With my wife gone half the time, I made a decision to wait until my daughter was in a better mental state and our family was in a financially stable place before I filed for divorce. I did my best to continue to contribute and was essentially a single parent for 3 years. On a few occasions I brought up counseling again, but my wife said things were good and wouldn't go. We pretty much didn't have sex for that period of time, and there was one summer where she essentially moved to North Carolina for 6 weeks for work. She came home on some weekends. Last year, after my daughter started sophomore year of college and she was in a better place mentally and emotionally, I sold off some of my stock investments to create a trust for my kids to ensure college was covered. Then I filed for divorce. At first my wife was really pissed, then she left to live in North Carolina again. When she came back 4 weeks later, she said she wanted to work through it, but I told her I had made the decision to leave years ago and wasn't interested. We eventually worked through mediation and got an amicable divorce. My kids live with me now and support me, but all of my in-laws and even most of my family outside of my sister think I'm asshole. They believe I should have forced the issue more when we started counseling and either divorced or made it clearer to my wife how important counseling was to me. They've called me selfish and some of my in-laws are refusing to interact with my kids when they're at my house. For example, my daughter FaceTimed her grandmother once this summer and she hung up once she saw that my daughter was at my house. They also created a bit of a scene at my son's graduation in the spring, refusing to acknowledging me and demanding that my son choose to celebrate with them or me rather than having dinner together as a group. I encouraged my son to go with them and we had our own celebration later, but something happened at the dinner and my son has lived with me and been almost no contact with them since. I honestly feel like I did what was best for my kids, but now it feels like their mom's family is punishing them and I feel like a terrible father. I admit that it might have been more mature to address the issue head-on with my relationship with my ex, but I felt that it was about more than just the two of us. Frankly, I feel like my lack of backbone years ago has made this divorce worse for my kids, but I also believe that if I had to do it again, I would still prioritize my kids over my own feelings and make the same choice. Aita Edit. Holy crap, this blew up. First off, thanks for folks who provided feedback and comments. I really felt like shit and both the positive and negative comments helped me get a little perspective on things. I've seen a few comments come up multiple times, so I figure it's worth answering them here before I move on. This is an account I created to ask an embarrassing dating question earlier this year. I created it because my main username is recognizable and I reused it now because I don't really want to air my issues associated with a known username. When my wife took the job, we were doing well financially, but the job still came with a big raise. I was making about $200,000 and the job she took gave her a raise from about $80,000 to $140,000. That was enough that we could go from saving enough to have an emergency fund to having enough to pay for our kids' college outright. We both work in tech, but she works for a defense contractor and some of the work needs to be done on site and only one of the offices related to her work is near where we live. When we originally discussed the job, her plan was to work in the high travel role for some time then try to transfer to a lower travel role based near us. She got promoted a few times and staying near our home wasn't an option unless she took a bit pay and title cut. When we divorced I was making about $280,000 and she made a little over $300,000. Some folks were also confused by my stock. Comment: I'm a software engineer for a big tech company and about 20 to 30% of my salary comes in the form of RSUs, restricted stock units. I'm not an investor by any means, and I was just selling off stock mostly to cover my daughter's college and pay off what debt my son had. I know a lot of people are jumping right to an affair, but I really doubt it. In school, my wife and I were the obnoxious kids who reminded the teacher about homework and she's a massive introvert. Her working late in a hotel room is much more likely than her sleeping around or keeping some secret family. There's a chance I'm wrong here, but I think this is more a situation where Reddit sometimes thinks all divorces end with infidelity. When I say we had an amicable divorce, I mean that more in the legal sense than the emotional sense. Uncontested might be a better term. The only significant asset we had that wasn't easily split was our home. My wife loves the house and I frankly wanted something different, so she bought out my portion of it. Our kids are adults, so there's no custody. Our assets are mostly divisible, so no issues there. Our salaries were comparable, so there was no alimony. We each had a car. Overall, it was pretty straightforward to divide things evenly and neither of us wanted to draw things out. We didn't end the marriage as friends by any means, but from a legal standpoint it was amicable because we decided on arrangement with a mediator and only involved lawyers briefly to actually draft the final paperwork for the judge to sign off on. Additional information. Some other questions: why did your wife disappear off to a travel job? Was fun money separate and based on income? My wife has never wanted to be a homemaker/traditional kind of wife and always placed a lot of value on her career. It's part of the reason I married her. That being said, I never expected her to take a job that had so much travel and I still don't completely understand why she did it. I think part of it was that she knew things were tough at home and this was an escape. I also know she had mostly younger coworkers and there was some amount of feeling like a jet-setter. Sorry, I can't think of a more current term. Why did you have chore arrangements like you were roommates that were expected to be adhered to even when she got the travel job? I'm not sure exactly what you mean here. I think most relationships include establishing who's responsible for certain chores. Work around the house also. I obviously didn't expect her to do housework while she was away, but as I said, she didn't really help out when she was back. I didn't expect her to do all the work when she was back or anything, just her fair share when she was home. Why did you have a deleted post from Low Karma about crazy dating misadventures only recently? Because I started dating after the divorce and being in my 40s trying to figure out dating hasn't gone well. I've addressed this in other comments, but that post was actually the reason I made this throwaway account and I deleted it when I realized I was really out of touch with current dating norms. What is the reason your side of the family is giving you for being pissed at you as well? My family believes the only reason for divorce is infidelity or abuse. They are pretty conservative/traditional. How did you phrase your request for counseling? Initially it was pretty soft. I mentioned it a few times, but didn't really push. Around 2021, I told her that I felt that our marriage was falling apart and I told her that I thought the only way to move forward was counseling. She agreed and we started. But as I said in my post, she didn't commit to it. We had Zoom sessions when she was traveling and she often wouldn't show up. Relevant comments. Commenter 1, NTA, but really, only your kids can answer this question for you. Maybe just point blank ask them. Do you think I was wrong to wait till you guys were settled and I was ready, or was it the wrong decision for you? It sounds like you did everything you could and your kids will never forget. It's all done now. Forget about it and live life happy. It's what it was all for. Reply: I have checked with the kids and they agree with my decision now, but I also didn't really ask them until after the incident at my son's graduation. That's kind of why I'm doubting things. I waited until my in-laws were jerks before I asked my kids about it. But I can also see how my decisions have at least some impact on my in-laws' behavior. Frankly, it's a mess and I should probably be seeing a therapist rather than talking to Reddit, but sometimes talking to strangers on the internet feels safer. Commenter 2, NTA. So, is your ex-wife okay with everybody treating her kids like that? Is she treating them poorly as well? And you should let her know that counseling was so important to you. No, you shouldn't. No one asks for counseling just because they're bored. And when you asked for divorce, her first reaction was to go to North Carolina, again, where, probably, she asked her affair if they can be a public couple now. He may have answered no, and then she came with, let's work this out. The truth is, if the papers were reversed, no one would be blaming her for wanting a divorce. Don't blame yourself. Everyone, including your kids, are adults. Now ask your kids if they want to do therapy, if they didn't already do, and keep your distance from this people. They are not your family if they are willing to understand you. Reply: my ex-wife really doesn't talk to me much, but when I brought up the FaceTime thing her response was essentially, I don't control my mother, my ex isn't treating my kids poorly, but she also continues to prioritize work over the kids. My daughter is in therapy for her depression, and I've offered to pay for my son to go if he wants to go. Update. I'm still getting comments and messages from time to time about that post, so I figured I would take some time to give an update. Quick summary of the original post. My wife became more and more distant in our marriage and I decided to get a divorce, but I waited about 3 years to do it after I decided because I felt it was best for the kids. My kids chose to live with me and generally were on my side, but my in-laws and family were pretty mad at me. Things are going much better overall since the post. I got a lot of support, but also a lot of criticism which I took to heart. I have been putting in some work to mend fences and help get things to a more reasonable state. I don't expect my ex or her family to be friends with me, but I at least want to be on good terms. My relationship with my parents and family is much better and this Christmas was pretty much back to normal. My family is very conservative especially when it comes to marriage, but they finally understand how bad it had become and have reluctantly accepted. My relationship with my ex and more importantly her relationship with our kids has also improved. She has apparently been going to therapy on her own and while she hasn't gone into detail she does seem to be a lot less angry about what happened. We decided to have Thanksgiving together so we could all talk through things with the kids. It was a bit messy and there were a lot of tears, but we also got to a place where we all understand each other a bit more. We all agree that I shouldn't have waited so long to go through with the divorce, but my ex and kids also say they understand why I did it. My ex-wife and I even had a conversation about dating, which was weird but surprisingly kind of nice. My ex-in-laws still think I'm a horrible person and most refuse to talk to me, but they have started treating my kids well. My kids went to the in-laws' place for Christmas Eve and told me went okay. We talked about it on Christmas and while they didn't give many details they did say they planned to do something on New Year's Eve with my ex and the in-laws, so I'm happy about that. Sorry this isn't a juicy update with anything crazy, but I was bored during the holiday downtime and thought I would log in and post some details. One thing I've learned from this, and I hope others learn too, even if your heart's in the right place, it's probably better to divorce when the marriage is over rather than putting up a facade for years. I don't regret getting a divorce, but I do wish I hadn't waited 3 years when I knew it was over. Top comments. Commenter 1. You shouldn't be bothered by what your ex-il think about you. People who blame children, even almost adults, for the things their father did are not very good at judging people. They are even the real here. Commenter 2. When it's over. Dragging it out only accumulates damage to someone, yourself, the kids, etc. Glad things are working out for you, and appreciate you sharing your experience and conclusions. Commenter 3. I don't understand anyone saying you did the wrong thing. Ending a marriage with children involved isn't just about ending the marriage, it affects the entire family. Waiting to make sure your daughter's mental health was in a place where it could sustain the divorce wasn't selfish. It was the exact opposite. If you had divorced when you decided you wanted to, and your daughter's mental health had plummeted, then what? The only person inconvenienced was the woman who neglected her marriage and her children, and she'd been inconveniencing you and the kids by abandoning them for years. Please stop feeling any sense of guilt for waiting. You're the only one who did the right thing. Stop apologizing for that. Stories number 29. Aita for not giving my dad back the money he put into savings for me when I betrayed him by accepting extra stuff from grandparents who wouldn't give equally to my stepsiblings. My parents created a savings account for me, 19M, and he put away money for me starting when I was young. My dad continued after my mom died, and by the time I turned 18 I had a pretty sizable savings account. When I was 8 my dad started dating Nina, and Nina had kids from her previous relationship. They were 3 years old and 18 months at the time. My dad treated them just like his own. Since their dad was out of the picture, he made a rule after a couple of years when he didn't feel like his family or my mom's were fair to them. My mom's side couldn't give me a big item for his house if they gave nothing to them. He said it wasn't fair if I opened a gaming console with a bunch of games from them and nothing was sent to Nina's kids. They could send me some smaller stuff and it wasn't a big deal. My dad's family had to give to us equally though, and he said there was no treating me different because we were all a family. My dad's family did follow the rules publicly, but in private they gave me extra money and smaller stuff. I never told dad and I accepted it. My mom's family kept the big stuff for their house since I'd visit them a few times a month. They never sent anything for Nina's kids. My dad never talked to me about the rule. I think he expected me to be protective of Nina's kids and to insist we were a family and all of us should be the same, but I never felt the same way about the stepfamily stuff as he did. They got married when I was 12, but to me they were still Nina's kids. Dad told me about the savings when I was 16 and I gained access when I turned 18. In October my dad found out about the extra stuff his parents gave me. He and my aunt argued because he expected them to feel bad about originally treating Nina's kids different to me. He said I'd have grown up feeling ashamed of them if he'd let it continue, and my aunt threw me and my grandparents under the bus saying if I felt that way why did I take the stuff behind his back. He was so mad after he confronted my grandparents. He confronted me and he asked me how I could let my little siblings be treated differently. He told me family is supposed to stand by each other. I told him he accepted them as his full family, but I never did, and I reminded him of all the years I knew them. I never called them my family or my siblings. I even pointed out how I call them Nina's kids. He told me that wasn't right and they grew up with me being their big brother. I said I was nice to them because they were kids, but that was it. Then he demanded I give him back all the money in my savings. He said if I was going to take all that extra stuff and betray the family, I didn't deserve it. I refused to and told him the money is mine now. Nina lost her mind when she learned about it too. She didn't have family to give her kids, so she felt extra pissed on behalf of her kids. She was also pissed at dad for letting me have the money when I did, since they can't take it and split it between her kids. They keep asking for it back and I keep saying no, they can't access it either, so it's safe, but they think I'm an for taking the money when I knew I was accepting the stuff from dad's parents. Aita. Stories number 30. I 31F cannot stand my boyfriend's 30M mom 60F, and I think she might be literally insane. My boyfriend's mom is easily one of the worst people I've ever encountered in my entire life, and it is a miracle that her son, my boyfriend, has turned out to be such an incredible, kind, loving person. She has serious, blatant mental issues that aren't being treated, and I oscillate between feeling intense sadness for her and pure hatred. Some examples of her behavior just from this past year. She filed a restraining order against her own brother over a financial trust dispute. Her father died last year, and he was apparently very wealthy, and there was a big trust fund to fight over. I don't know what happened between her and her brother, but I watched her behavior at the hospital while her father died, and she was an awful witch. Her own mother, who has severe dementia, was beside herself every 30 minutes. She had to be reminded we were in the hospital with her husband of 50 years on his deathbed. My boyfriend's mother was seriously nasty to her, and even hospital staff noticed and tried to protect her. The trust should have gone to the widow, and her brother took it over to provide medical care / living arrangements for her. She fought this tooth and nail, insisting the money was hers. She sued him for the money and lost. She remains extremely bitter about this. She is very jealous of my boyfriend's niece's grandmother, the other grandma, and bad mouths her to this 6-year-old child, saying things like, "Grandma Mary is a bitch." Grandma Mary, by the way, is sweet, timid, and very quiet. Every Christmas, without fail, she blows up. We hosted her at our home last Christmas and all seemed well until she found out we were going to Vegas the next week to celebrate my birthday. She stormed out and drove home, then, on Christmas Day, wrote an email stating, "You are no longer my children period. Like I said, I have learned my lesson. I am sure Mary will take you in, as that seems to be her mo." My boyfriend pulled up email records from the past 5 years and there is always an email like this sent to the entire family on Christmas. She lives 2 hours away, but had a dance event where we live this past summer. We agreed to host her for a couple days, but when she informed us it would be nearly 5 full days and we had evening plans on some of them. We asked if she could stay at my boyfriend's brother's house. She gets violently angry if we're not in the home to entertain her. This caused the biggest uproar you could ever imagine. She told my boyfriend he was a horrible son, told him to fuck himself, and that she hated him. When she finally got to our house a couple days later, she ran into the house screaming and demanding he go get all her stuff out of the car. He was miserably sick, and when she found this out, she told him she ought to slap him upside the head for having her there. He debated telling her he was sick, but thought she would blow up either way. There was no winning. We were under the impression she would be at her event through the weekend, but instead she sat around our home complaining and being generally awful. We both had important work to do over the weekend that we could not do because she was there when she offered to sweep and mop the floors. We didn't stop her because it gave her a distraction. She later wrote an email stating, "I am trying to get out and meet people, but you all curtail any effort. I don't have any friends. My whole life has been condemned to the enslavement of others whether I want to or not." The final straw was giving up the afternoon dance events to mop and clean for son. I would have paid her to leave that day. This is just a mild example of how her mind works, and how she justifies her own behavior. One of her lifelong dreams was to drive the Pacific Coast Highway. My boyfriend tried to make that dream a reality for her last month together. They planned the cities to stop at, activities they wanted to do, the type of car they wanted to drive. They agreed about who would pay for what. I was invited on this trip, and reluctantly agreed to go. We all discussed payment, and agreed I would pay for my own food and activities, while they would split car/hotel costs since I didn't have a say in any of it and it was technically their trip. After the dance event incident, she wrote an email stating, "I am only going to Cali at this point because, OP, would be forced to go 50/50ths with son, even though she makes less than him, but it won't be that much fun." She wrote this email to the entire family for some reason. We moved forward with the trip, aware of the potential risks. Things blew up way beyond what we ever had planned, though we expected anger and childlike behavior from her. But the justification from my boyfriend is that if it would improve her happiness levels even slightly, it was worth it. On the last day, she has a tendency to get very upset the day a trip ends. While discussing payments, she just lost it. We were in the car, and she started screaming about how awful we were at the top of her lungs. She screamed bloody murder at me for things I've never even said or thought. She brought up things from years ago that have since been distorted in her mind, and when my boyfriend said the screaming needed to stop or we would have to just head to the airport early, our flight was about 8 hours from then, and a 2-hour drive. She lost it even further. She called 911 and insisted we were both holding her hostage and about to abandon her. We had to pull over, in a fancy hotel parking lot, no less. And the cops came and questioned all of us. Within 5 minutes they caught on to her mental issues and hysteria. They forced her to vacate the car, and separate from us she got hysterical again, begging to not have to leave and that she would just shut up when they said it was a bad idea to stay together. She asked for the police report number so she could file a restraining order against my boyfriend, her son. He gave her money for a car and food for the day and drove away in shock. So why am I writing all this? Partially to vent, partially because I feel like I am going crazy. My boyfriend said I need to just separate myself from her alternate reality and not let it affect me, but I simply cannot do that no matter how much I try. I think she needs mental help, but my boyfriend just says, that's the way she is. The thing is, there's always a summer blow up like this, and then about a month before Christmas she writes an email that says, so when do you want to celebrate Christmas and whose place am I staying? It just cannot happen again this year. I don't want her in my life, and I especially don't want her ruining my favorite time of year for the 3rd year in a row. Am I being overly sensitive? Should I just put up with her behavior? How do we move forward in a healthy way? TLDR, my boyfriend's mom exhibits clear signs of mental personality disorder, but hasn't gotten help. She is a regular facet in our lives and it's affecting my own sanity and health. How do we move forward in a healthy way? Relevant comments. Comments 1. You don't have a MIL problem, you have an so problem. That's just the way she is a fine attitude when someone over-decorates for Christmas or is obsessed with polka music. It does not apply when the person is a psycho lunatic and the police need to be called. If your BF doesn't start setting some boundaries and continues to enable her crazy, you may want to think seriously about trading him in for a guy who has a spine and can say no to his mother. Run, do not walk to just no mill. They can help. Reply. To be fair, after the summer dance event incident, we came together and made a joint decision that she could no longer stay in our home. That was a healthy discussion, a big step for him, and the line we drew brought us both relief also. Me going on that trip was my decision and I could have said no. He did not force me and wouldn't have made me feel guilty for not going. Still, I didn't think it was a good idea to do the trip in the first place and I did want to support him. We agreed, after that trip, that there would be no more trips like that while she was still this unhealthy. Update. It's been about a month since I last posted and there have been a few small developments. The most notable thing is that my boyfriend and I, along with his family, have had several serious conversations about how to move forward. But first, some more information on how his mother has been behaving over the last month. She went on a spree of verbally attacking me, both via text to me, and via text to his family members. She threatened to sabotage our recent trip to my hometown to see my family, which I'd been looking forward to for months, as we hadn't all been together in 3 years. She also made lots of petty comments and insults about me, not limited to my lack of talent. I am in a creative profession, and my boyfriend's stupidity for being with someone like me. Basically, she's super pissed with her current station in life. And I am the privileged individual who gets the blame. She also contacted my boyfriend's brother to let him know she was writing his 7-year-old daughter out of her will and taking away her college fund. This has been done about 24 times, because she spent time with me and enjoyed it. Versus not being happy when spending time with her. I have blocked her from every social media platform, email, and phone/text. Boyfriend's brother has taken a placating approach by simply responding with okay whenever she texts, versus engaging. Outside of the verbal aggression, she has backed off. She used to call my boyfriend at a frequency of several times a week, which he admits was a cumbersome, exhausting burden because he felt obligated to listen to her 30-minute angry diatribes about whatever drama was happening in her world. She hasn't called him in 2 months, and it has been glorious. Regarding the upcoming holidays, we sat down with his other family members here and decided how to move forward. We are all in agreement that we will not spend Thanksgiving or Christmas with his mother. We have made plans to travel out of town for both Thanksgiving and Christmas, and we're very much looking forward to the mini excursions at this point. His mother would have likely contacted us about Thanksgiving plans, but in her anger since the PCH fiasco she hasn't attempted to do so. I am not sure if she will reach out about Christmas, but if she does then we will relay our current plans and take it as we go. In addition to family-wide conversations about holidays, we have talked extensively about his mother's mental health and the best ways to move forward. In my state, there is a law that allows you to file a court-ordered mental health evaluation, and it only takes one person to file the application. That is not an option we have ruled out, especially since she is clearly hurting and mentally unwell, and could benefit greatly from a mental health check and medication. It is my understanding that one has been filed for her previously, and that the court found mental disorder, but that she has ceased taking medication. If it were up to me, I would file the application yesterday, especially since she mentioned wanting to kill herself in her last angry bout. Ultimately, though, I don't want to sidestep my boyfriend. In the end, as a family we have agreed that our lives are better when she is not in it, and that ultimately she is happier, too, since everything we do, even planning a lifelong dream trip for her, causes her great distress in the end. We'll just have to take this one day at a time, but things have been calmer, generally, and I am looking forward to the holidays instead of feeling anxious about them for the first time in 3 years. TLDR, our lives are calmer and more happy without her in it, and we have purposefully made plans to spend the holidays without her this holiday season. Stories number 31. Aita for ruining the Christmas dinner by refusing to cook. We flew across the US to spend Christmas with my MIL and BIL's family. It's been an insanely chaotic year with a toddler and starting a new business. We even booked the trip at the last minute because we were so unsure on if we'd be up for traveling after such a busy year. Background: MIL is very authoritarian and flies off the handle relatively easily, which results in her kids/people sort of walking on eggshells around her and has ruined her fair share of Christmases in the past. Anyway, leading up to the trip, she decides that she wants me to cook Peking duck for Christmas dinner at her house. She never asked me if I wanted to, she just tells me after she purchased it. Whatever, not a big deal. So she plans her elaborate dinner and it involves myself and my wife cooking multiple dishes. We get to her house first, so it's my wife, our toddler, myself and MIL. She's in great spirits and welcomes us and we start chatting and cooking for one of the meals she asked my wife to cook. It turns out MIL bought the wrong thing. My wife laughs it off and said we'll try to make it work. MIL retorts along the lines of, well, the show must go on, so it's okay if you don't make it. My wife decides to give it a try anyway. During this process, my other brother-in-law calls. We chat for 10 minutes or so, and at one point, I went outside on the porch to sit and catch up with him. When I get back inside, he asks to talk to my wife, his sister, and asks what she's cooking. I pan the camera to the pot on the stove, and he chuckles and asks her what she's making. Due to the obviously incorrect ingredients that MIL bought, we all chuckle lightheartedly. And she immediately loses her shit, ranting about the fact that she already said it wasn't a big deal, so why are we even discussing it? She then starts cursing/shouting at my wife and asking her why it was necessary to involve her brother, etc. She then tried to insinuate very indirectly that I must have been a part of it, too. Moments later, brother-in-law number 2 walks in with his family, and she tells them she is pissed but calms down significantly. A couple hours later, I told her that I'm not cooking anything today. She tried to gaslight me by saying that her anger was directed towards her daughter and not me. She continued that if I felt that it had anything to do with me it must be due to a guilty conscience, and that my response was overblown. I still refused to make it, which resulted in her spending 3 extra hours in the kitchen. So Aita. Stories number 32. Aita for agreeing to babysit my cousins. I, 17F, agreed to babysit my cousins for 3 days this January. My grandma is also babysitting for 3 days. My cousins prefer that I babysit because they get to stay at their own house, as opposed to going to my grandmother's, and I think they just find it more fun. I love spending time with the kids and I need the money, so I told my aunt I could share the babysitting load. Upon finding this out, my grandma got very upset and accused me of stealing her grandchildren away from her. She continued to make nasty comments at me for the rest of the afternoon until I excused myself. At the start of December I told my grandma that I was hoping to spend time with my cousins this holidays, and she said we could split half days. They would come over to mine for a couple hours while staying at her house for the day. This only happened once. I offered multiple times that I could come over to hers to help or suggested activities I could bring to do with them, but she seemed intent on keeping us apart. However, I'm wondering whether this time I am in the wrong and should offer to give up one of my babysitting days. I have the rest of my life to spend time with my cousins and my grandma might only have a few years left. So Aita for agreeing to babysit my cousins and taking my grandma's grandchildren away from her.